Thank you everyone for tuning in. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. It's going to be a big night on episode 60 for us, but we'll get into that later. But first, before we get into the audio, we'll do this again. I don't know if Dino knows that, but so we start the live, and then we start our audio because of the different ways that we do it. So
you do it any way you see fit.
yeah.
But introduce for the live here.
Yeah. So Dino Tripodis.
Dino Tripodis, right?
Dino Tripodis, right? And you said you were in the radio business for 24 years, just.
I left last June.
Yeah.
Sunny 95 right here in Columbus, Ohio.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
After how many years?
24.
24.
24 in a row.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I know I have a lot of good questions for you. I know Steve has a lot of good questions for you. And for the people... Anyways,
no.
For our live listeners, don't be afraid to ask questions. You know that we're very interactive. So, and as Steve is doing right now...
Doing it right now.
We would like you to share it and like it. We had a record number last week, right? 44 shares.
I believe it was, yeah. It was almost 50 shares there, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, and especially being the fact that Facebook is our biggest contributor. It's an interesting way that we go about it, but it works for us. But, so Dino is with Whiskey Business Podcast, and I reached out to Dino, about a month ago?
Yeah, we started communicating back and forth, and I suggested that one of us suggested, I don't remember who gets the credit for that.
Who cares?
Who cares about hooking up and letting me be on your podcast, and then one of these Mondays, that seems to be the best night for you guys come and do Whiskey Business in my house, and just support each other in the podcast community.
Exactly.
And in the whiskey world.
Exactly. And that's, I started following you and I saw it and I really enjoyed your guys' podcast with Canepa. And obviously that's a different, interesting way of going about it to see inside of his mind. Yeah.
We've had two with Jim Canepa, the superintendent of liquor control for the state of Ohio, so you can check those out. He was a great guest. Great guest and a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with him. And informative as well for those people who were thinking that Ohio gets cheated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information on that one.
On the quality bourbons.
For sure.
So he's trying to change that facade. So.
Anyway. You want to line this up here so we can get the audio going?
Yeah.
Kylie already said she has some questions. What are we going to start with here?
So...
Might as well open them both.
Yeah. Well, you do the honors.
Oh, well, thank you.
Like that.
That's how that goes.
Filmed in front of a live studio audience tonight, so...
It's
part of the camping chair creaks and the stupid laughter. Brad.
Hi, Brad.
And Nate.
And Nate.
Nate's here.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, boys, dollar for dollar, I don't care what these folks put out, Old Forester, you know you're going to get something good.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
In just about every drop of whiskey. Even just the regular Old Forester is just a great everyday go-to bourbon.
Yeah. I really like the 100
for the price. But these, what we've got here, what we got? The 1897.
Yeah, so I figured.
They're series bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another way to manipulate the bourbon drinkers to buy more.
Exactly.
Stuff.
Right.
But it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, you want to get ready to cheers your
intro
here? All right. This is a tradition here. We can.
Ready?
Whenever you're ready.
I'm ready to rock. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. This is the Bourbon and BS podcast. I'm Jake Sanders along with Steve Crane, and we are accompanied tonight by Whiskey Business Podcast, local here in Columbus as well, and their main man, Dino Tripodis.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on.
For being on.
Yes.
For being here.
Yeah.
You don't know that yet.
What?
That's going to be a pleasure.
Oh, I'm going to take a shot at it. I'm going to take a gamble.
I assume you've been in worse places.
I've been in garages with, where people have closed the doors.
Yeah.
And not the best situation. So I like to think that this will go a little better.
Let's keep it up here.
Let's keep it on board here.
Let's do that.
It's a relaxing atmosphere.
Yeah,
we got cigars, whiskey, and we mean to mention is that we do cigars and whiskey. If this is the first time tuning in, and so we're gonna have Dino bringing in the Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style part of Old Forester and Brown Foreman's Whiskey Row series, and along with Steve's Bottled and Bond, the 1987. 1897. My bad. And is that
pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, but it's the Bottled and Bond, and it's also part of the Whiskey Row series created by Brown Foreman.
These are the supposedly years of significance in whiskey history: 1897 and 1920 and the 1910, which we don't have tonight. You know, certain things that happened. I don't know what happened specifically on any one of those particular years, but apparently it was enough to make a special deal about it.
The first one was the 1870, right? 1870 Old
The red.
Forester. That was the original blend or whatever, the original batch, I think they called it.
Yeah.
And then this and then that.
Yeah.
Or there's 1910, you said.
There's a 1910. The 1920 and the 1910 pretty much look like each other because of the labels.
Right.
But they're all amazing. We're going to dive into some of that information there and give a little bit of background. But what we're smoking tonight is the Butera and the, what is it? I'm sorry.
Featured cigar is the Perdomo.
Go ahead, Steve.
Champagne 10th anniversary. And then, Butera from our sponsor, Altadis. So we can throw that out there right now, right?
Yeah.
If you're watching on the live video or on YouTube or the recording, whatever, you'll see behind us, as always, the banner from Altadis USA. So you've got Romeo, Monte Cristo, Upman, Butera. We've done the Butera on here before, but again, they're sponsoring our weekly second cigar and continuing to support the podcast. So we appreciate that. And then also Tinderbox at Easton, they have supplied the Perdomo 10th anniversary, which is fantastic. And then also the BS Cigar Company, which Dino he got as a gift, a gold and a silver. So
a takeaway. I've never had a parting gift before.
It's amazing.
It's nice.
It's amazing.
So, I mean, we were just talking about on the live that, you've been in the radio business just going on 24 years.
It was 24 years last June, and I left. And I think podcasting still kind of keeps me, keeps that muscle strong.
Yeah.
I still consider that to be broadcasting in a sense, but a lot more freeing, a lot more freedom, a lot more, the fact you can talk and not be interrupted by a Maroon 5 song and 7 minutes of commercials is wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. So I still consider myself to be broadcasting.
Are you not a Maroon 5 fan, or is it
it's not,
is that an example?
It's kind of like it's like broccoli.
Yeah.
I'll eat it. Am I going to ask for it? No.
Yeah.
But if you serve
You're
it,
bigger on Adam Levine on his own, right?
Yeah.
Good. I like that.
It's okay. It's all right. I'm not going to go out and buy it on purpose.
Right.
So, but I don't hate it if I have to eat it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Please leave us a 5-star review when you're done listening to us. We'd really appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy this episode. So again, thank you for just being here. But I'm really excited to have Dino on. I know we've been.
Yeah, excited. You guys get into some serious stuff. I mean, you guys go deep.
Yeah, we have
you go down. The word we used earlier with some of your friends. You guys go down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And I like that.
We do.
I mean, that's what it should be, right?
Yeah, it depends on the guest, it depends on the topic. It's one of those things where there are episodes where we pick out a topic and you just don't, we don't know how it's going to go. It could be something where it just kind of ends in a short manner, and then all of a sudden it's just, we're cutting it off.
Right.
Because it's just gone way too long, down too far the rabbit hole. And that's where you have a problem.
Well, and the whiskey hits.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that happens with us as well. Depends on how much of the bottle we put down on any given podcast. That does seem to shift the dynamic from time to time.
Right, absolutely.
But
it's great. And so, whiskey business, when did that start for you guys?
That started at the station, actually, when I said, when they started thinking that, they started seeing that podcasts were catching on and becoming more popular, they asked if I wanted to do a podcast, and first I said no, and then I said, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I came up with the idea of a podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with, because that's how we do it. a different bottle every week that I share with my guests, and the guests run from A to Z.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had an astrophysicist on. We did. That was one of my favorite podcasts.
Really?
Yeah. He didn't drink, and drinking's not a requirement. You don't have to drink. We've had some fascinating guests on. No Z's yet. I'm trying to find a whiskey drinking zoologist. So Jack Hanna, if you're listening, yeah.
Do you know if he drinks whiskey?
I don't know.
He's got to.
You've had to have met him over the years.
Oh, I've met him over the
Okay,
years.
okay.
I know Jack, but
All
I'm
right.
saying I don't know if he's a gin drinker, vodka drinker,
Right.
whiskey drinker.
Right.
And we've had people. One of my favorite podcasts was called Matt, an alcoholic, and the guest bottle was nobody. He was a friend of mine who was an alcoholic, and I didn't know he was an alcoholic until he
Really?
actually hit bottom. And we talked about
Wow.
his story, and that was some riveting shit right there.
That's heavy.
It was crazy. It was crazy, but yeah. So they vary.
Yeah.
The one that's dropping on Monday is a Catholic priest.
You said that sounds interesting, and I agree with that.
Because we go there.
You go there.
We go there.
See, we like that.
Yeah.
Because that's the way we are.
We
too.
go there.
Good.
We go to where you say Catholic priest right now in this day and time, and that's the first thing that pops into people's mind is all the sex abuse scandals.
Yep.
We go there in the podcast with him. And
I like
he was a wonderful guest. So
Yeah?
all kind of fun stuff.
That's awesome.
It's good.
So, speaking on topics, tonight is an even more special one, really, because of the fact that you're writing a book on it, right?
Well,
Or getting started to.
the book is done. I'm revising the book, and the book is a book of essays. It's called I Wrote Down What You Were Thinking, and when you mentioned tonight's topic, that's one of the essays in the book. It's
Yeah.
called Being Present.
Yeah.
And that's what what the topic is for tonight, right?
Being
Yeah.
actively
Yeah.
present.
Being actively present. Well, the title of the essay is called Being Present, but I'm sure that there's some comparisons
I
and
think
some
it's-
similarities that will probably I'll be able to chime in on that particular thought process.
I would
because-
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great because it kind of has led off of last week's podcast where we were talking about the art of communication. So,
Yeah.
and how that's like kind of ties, it almost at the very end of it was leading into actively being present and how you are actively being present in a conversation while you're listening and actively listening and you're not just sitting there and
It's a topic that comes up a lot, and I'm interested to see because we can tie in a lot because it comes up as part of many topics. You know, the whole thing, texting and while driving or, on your phone while you're literally talking to someone.
Right.
You're looking down the whole time or it's like Netflix. I've seen some of those things where it's like saying like Netflix's next show is basically just, just give me anything I can put on, pay attention to while surfing Instagram.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to see on Netflix. It's just something that I cannot have to pay attention to,
Yeah.
but I know what's going on. I mean, it's like we're breeding that culture of the fact that you don't have to be fully present in anything you have to do because it's just constantly multitasking in every second of the day where at no point are you 100% focused on one thing. And that's kind of where I'm coming from on that.
So does that bother you? I mean,
Doesn't bother. Well,
does this topic
it
come
can.
up because
It bothers me, yes.
bugs you?
It bugs me to a point. For me, really, it's the fact that I've been working on it myself to be more present in the moment because I've struggled with that, as I think a lot of people do. So for me, it's one of those things that I'm working on it because I've noticed that I do it. And it's not even the fact that stuff I was talking about. It's literally when your mind is elsewhere while you're at work. When your mind's elsewhere while you're doing something. You're always doing, like, it's getting to that point where you're doing yard work. You know what I mean? And there's almost something to be said that if you're out mowing the lawn, maybe you're listening to music, but don't think about what you're doing after you're done with it. You know what I mean? Like, have that moment for yourself. Like, when I'm in the gym, it's one of those things where it's like you're constantly thinking about your day at work. And that's fine to do sometimes, but to be actively present in what you're doing, you get, in my opinion, that's what I want to talk about, is what do you get out of something, no matter what it is, if you're 100% there for that activity, that person, that task at hand, as opposed to just doing something while thinking about 5 other things that happened before, that should be happening now, how this could be going differently, what's going to be happening tomorrow, all of that good stuff. Man, I'm not going to get enough sleep tonight because I'm doing this. It's like, at no point are you just right there with that moment.
And it's
being
hard.
present.
Yeah, it's hard to be in that situation because I totally agree with you. But we almost even dove into the conversation. It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
But like if you've never tuned in, we talk about the whiskey and then the cigar and the pairing, and we'll dive into the conversation. But so tonight, thank you again, Dino, for bringing the Prohibition style, man. It's awesome.
No, thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't find the score of the 1910. I thought maybe it might have been hanging around on my shelves because there's literally hundreds of whiskeys at my home as we speak, and I'm like, just foraging through them all to see if I can find any 1910, but I don't have any of it. So
yeah,
I had the 1920, and here it is.
No. So what's the story with this?
So the story comes from Brown-Forman, which is Old Forester, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to think of Brown-Forman as like kind of a conglomerate with a bunch of different companies, and Old Forester being one of them, that's kind of how it is. But so Old Forester, the 1920 Prohibition style, they created this bottle amongst others, kind of a whiskey rose series. And I believe there's the Statesman, the 1897, the 1910, the Prohibition style, the 1920, and am I leaving out one more? The red label. I always forget.
You got the original batch.
The original batch.
That's 1870.
Yeah, that's what I was leaving out.
The original batch, and then you said that this is the bottled and bond that I brought to kind of complement, since we couldn't find the 1910.
Yeah.
And you have the 1910, and I don't even know what is that significance to that one. Is that called something?
Well, the bottled and bond.
No, that's the 1897. Then there's a 1910 we're talking about.
1910. Supposedly, I thought that they were all significant years in whiskey history that were something important to either to the process of whiskey, how they made it, or that's why they picked those particular years. And I don't know what they are.
Yeah, I don't know the 1910. I'm not very familiar with it. But 1920, obviously, Prohibition.
Right.
So, and I think that's the biggest one. And I think out of the series, I haven't had all of them, but out of the 3 that I've had, it's definitely the one that packs the punch. Because it's 115 proof.
Yeah.
It's full of brown sugar and vanilla.
Well, let's try it.
Yeah.
I get pick up a little vanilla. I also pick up a little chocolate, a little hint of chocolate in there too. Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah, this is definitely a big one at 115 proof. And the cool thing about Old Forester is the fact that, or Brown-Forman, was that it was one of the few distilleries that were actually able to be open, government regulated during Prohibition for medicinal purposes.
For medicinal purposes.
It says it right there on the bottle too.
Yeah. So, and they secured a permit in Kentucky, which was number 3. And I believe that there was 6?
6 what?
6 distilleries that were able to produce
like
whiskey and for medicinal purposes.
I think that is correct, yes.
Yeah. But
remember back to our
we have a lot of fact checkers out here.
Exactly.
Back to our Prohibition podcast.
I think you're on the same one.
The 6, I think it was 6.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But off the rip, I think it's a great whiskey. I like the 115 proof. I like the fact that it's we've been saying this a lot lately, chewy, kind of like the Booker Kentucky Chew, if you had that.
Yeah.
It's a chewy bourbon where it just coats your palate.
It's thick.
Yeah, it's very thick.
Yeah, there's like a syrupy, viscosity to it.
Do you guys find, as you've been drinking more whiskeys, that you find you like the higher proofs now more or less, or does it matter?
I'll let Jake answer, because for those that listen every week, they know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I range between a 100 or like a 95 proof and a 120 proof.
Okay.
I think that's my range of what I like.
Say that again.
The 95 proof and a 120 proof.
Okay.
And that's what I like. I like to stick around that like 45 to 60 range percent alcohol.
It's like my brother-in-law, who I converted from a Scotch drinker to a bourbon drinker. He's like, I need the higher. I need it to bite a little bit. I want it to fight me a little bit.
Right.
He kind of digs that now. The smaller, the lesser proofs, something that ranges around about 85 or 90.
Yeah.
He'll enjoy, but he likes to fight.
Well, see, that's what we've talked about, like going to like the bourbon meetups and stuff like that. It's what I always compare it to the cigar world. It's like you start off mild, and as you get into it more and more, and you get to be an enthusiast, like you want a little bit more, you want a little bit more, you want a little more strength to it. You want, and it's something that, for me, when you ask that question to both of us, I like the whole spectrum. I am totally fine with an 80 proof. You know what I mean? Because it's like I feel like at that point it almost gets dogged anymore in the bourbon world, especially that. Like
I don't think it should.
I don't think it should. I'm saying that people are like, well, you know, that's kind of light. Like they're taken away from the product, and I'm like, no, they're the ones making this. And I always compare it to the fact like blending a cigar, or you know, it's like, oh, they blended a milder cigar. It's like, yeah, they did, and they did it for a reason. There's multiple reasons. It's like when you go to a nice restaurant and you order a meal and you start like customizing that meal. That's fine. You can do that if you want to. But if you want to like actually have what the chef prepared and why he prepared it that way, just shut the fuck up and eat the meal. If you don't like it, don't order it.
He's talking to me directly.
No, is he being a little passive?
No, it's not passive. No, his whole thing. What I do like about what Jake says, it's interesting to be able to have something like 115, and then be able to add a drop of water. Add another drop of water.
Well, I've said it before. Water is whiskey's friend from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know, sometimes I know some guys that refuse to put any ice or water in their whiskey, and I'm like, you know what? And I think sometimes you're cheating yourself, because much like some fine scotches that you drop a cube in, you know, some of these whiskeys need to open up a little bit. They need to open up, and so you can appreciate what's been put into that bottle. And that little cube or that little bit of water is the magic drop sometimes. So
I agree.
Don't be so. And as far as the 80s go, during the afternoon, I mean, I'll have a cocktail during the afternoon, or if I'm sitting at home right in the afternoon, I might want a lighter whiskey. I might not want 115 proof at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, maybe an 80 proof would be just fine right about now.
Well, and there's times too for me. It's like we're sitting around here, right? So you're not drinking one or two. Sometimes you're going to sit there. You're going to drink more than that. So if you're
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, well, if you're going to hit 115, and that's like Brad here in the garage right now. I mean, he was on the one where we did Booker's, and we polished.
Booker's is hot.
We polished off a bottle of Booker's.
You guys polished off the whole.
Oh yeah.
Booker's is hot. Booker's is one of those where I would put a drop of ice in there and let that bad boy open up a little bit.
It wasn't our best episode either.
It was. You stopped saying what you're saying to pour another glass of neat Booker's.
Oh man.
And I think that was the Kathleen.
It was the Kathleen's batch.
You got to be you're drinking Booker's. Something serious.
That was the one episode you talked about before that we go a little long sometimes when we're working on that. But that was an episode where we had quote technical difficulties between 3 hours and 5 minutes and 3 hours and 20 minutes, because it was basically Jake had sat back and Brad and I were basically agreeing by saying no, what I mean is for about 15 minutes, and it was one of those things. It was ramping up, conversation was getting into it, and then all of a sudden, like boom, everything hit, and it was just like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? And that was it. Like it was like that's all she wrote. That's all she wrote. And then like the audio, just like I was like, well, there's no good place to stop it, so boop, boop, and then it was like mid-sentence, and then something completely different. All right, thanks for tuning in. And we're like, wait, what happened?
Anytime you get to what I meant was, anytime you get to what I meant to say and what I really meant, ... Anytime you get there,
Well, and then it's also the whole thing, like, no, I completely get what you're saying. No, you know what I'm saying is, and I'm like, no. And it was just it was the worst game of catch of a bad ball.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And you dropped it every time they threw it at you. And I'm like, no, I got it. Let me throw it back to you.
I was pretty much just an audience member at that point. I was just letting it go. But I mean, have you had this before?
The 1920?
Yeah,
I have.
Has there been things that have changed over time, that when you sip it the first time and then how I noticed that sometimes.
Interesting you say that, because a friend of mine was in town on Monday. My friend Darren was in, and he's not a big whiskey drinker. He just started to drink whiskey, and he started with Scotch. He started with a bottle of Monkey Shoulder.
Yeah.
And he tried it for the first time, and he he was like, why do people like this? You know. And then he tried it again the next day, and the next day.
Yeah.
He started to recognize some of the flavor notes. So I mean, things do. Your palate does change over time. Now that was just one day, but there's certain whiskeys that I've come back to that I never really cared for, and it's like Bullet. I like Bullet's Rye. I don't like Bullet's Bourbon.
Agreed. I think we all agree.
Their regular bourbon, I don't like it, and I'm going to go back to it and try it again. But I like their rye.
Yeah.
And I like some of their older stuff.
Their 10 year is great.
Phenomenal. Their 10 year, but their actual, just regular bullet bourbon on the shelf, bottle, no, I don't care for it.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and I'll try again. Maybe it caught me on a bad day. I don't know.
Yeah. With this one, it's interesting because Steve and I, before the podcast was a thing, we were doing Whiskey Wednesdays. And we were just trying different bottles out. And I grabbed this right when it came out, probably, what was that, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. And I tried it and I didn't like it. I thought it was too hot. And I thought it was really peppery. I thought I couldn't taste a lot of notes out of it. But now, obviously, when I smell this glass out of the Glencairn here, it's just all brown sugar, all that vanilla, all that chocolatey.
And you're drinking it out of the proper glass.
He's fancy like that.
In order to pick up the notes and so forth and so on.
I can get you a Glencairn.
No, dude, I like
This is my favorite
I'm a
whiskey
simple
glass.
guy. I like a big glass.
Yeah.
I like to have my hand around it. I like it to be heavy, and I like it to.
I've got heavier ones if you want a heavier one.
Let's make it a workout.
Just
man.
gotta
Give me
switch
2 of them.
hands, you know what I mean?
Where were you going with this conversation?
No idea.
What do you think of this?
I agree with the notes. I was trying to picture what it was, but
See, I still get more chocolate than vanilla.
you get chocolate.
Yeah.
I don't get a whole lot of vanilla. I do get the whole brown sugar or molasses or whatever it is. But there's heat to it, so it's almost like a spicy version of that, and I think that's just the heat of the first glass.
And it's got a nice long finish. I mean, when that goes down the throat, it's there for a second. Mm-hmm. It's there for a little bit, so I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a weird one. This is the first, honestly, and I don't know why. This is the first bourbon I've had that it stays on the roof of my mouth.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, I'm trying to see if that.
It
happens
just
for me.
It just
I don't get
sits.
it. I get more of
on the tongue.
Yeah, almost like a tongue bite from all the heat from it, and maybe I'm just a little dehydrated or whatever, but I get it right in the middle of the tongue where it's almost, it's like drying out a little bit right in the middle. Now the sides, it's still kind of mouth-watering, but it's weird. I got a little dry spot right in the middle of my tongue.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just the way it's hitting it or what. Is anyone else drinking this right now, or just the 3 of us?
I think it's phenomenal.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's good.
What's the Prohibition style story? I know on the bottle it says it. Basically.
Don't know. I don't know if this is like. I know with when
Try the back.
When Templeton came out with their rye, they had to change their labels. Because they were talking about it was the original Prohibition, and it wasn't.
Really?
It was initially a Templeton lie that they had to switch off the labels because they were going. Thank you.
Did you? That was you.
That was on the podcast.
That's
Thank you very much. And they had to take the label off.
Yeah.
And,
He said MGP.
MGP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that.
This just basically says on there, and they all of them have a little bit of a story on the label, but it says in 1920 during Prohibition, is it Owsley Brown? Mm-hmm. Is that how you say it? Owsley Brown was granted a limited permit to bottle medicinal whiskey at 117 West Main Street on Louisville's Whiskey Row. The typical barrel proof at that time prior to bottling was 115. That's where they're coming up with the 115 on that. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
I assume this doesn't really go back to that exact recipe. Maybe not even the same mash bill back then.
That's what they were trying to replicate.
Yeah. So basically, they're doing what they think that was kind of representative of the Prohibition era.
That's why the original batch, the first batch that came out, was supposed to take it back to that time.
To 1870.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think what they're trying to walk you through there with this whole story. What do they call it? The story?
The Whiskey Row.
The Whiskey Row. So that's what you had mentioned, Dino, that it's the 115 medicinal strength, basically. So that's what they're coming up with here is that you walk through it where, you look at this 1897, the bottle and bond, which we talk about on this, and they talk about on most bourbon podcasts and everything, but it's like this one, the 1897 says, with the passage of the Bottled in Bond Act of 1897, Old Forester transitioned from 90 proof to 100 proof. Originally produced on Louisville's Whiskey Row, this whiskey has a rich, bold character reminiscent of a 19th century bourbon. So again, I think that's what they're going for. I don't think it's any, there's no accuracy there as far as what they're actually putting in the bottle versus what they did. It's almost like they're owed to those eras, is what I'm imagining.
The dates itself, though, is a little bit interesting because in 1964, that's when actually, like, Congress had passed, like, the real deal where there was, like, legislation.
For bottled and bond?
Yeah, and that's where bourbon was. Yeah. So, like, bourbon became bourbon in 1964.
Oh, I gotcha.
But then bottled and bond was 1897.
Right. So whatever that 1870 is, the original, I mean, I assume that's what they were doing before, and that is 90 proof. The original, I noticed that.
But, yeah, it's really good.
How much? Old Forester first bourbon in a bottle, right? Was it as far as history goes?
That's what they say.
First bourbon, the first bottled bourbon.
They say on the back
there.
of these.
Yeah. As I think we talked about that in our Prohibition podcast that we had. We did a podcast on Prohibition, and
that Old Forester was the first.
I think Old Forester was one of the
in
first
1870.
ones.
That's awesome.
Yep. And of course, you guys are just a stone's throw away from where Prohibition started. So yeah. Thank you, Westerville.
Exactly.
Jeez. Yeah, Westerville was dry forever.
Well, that's why Otterbein is considered a dry.
It is, and it's funny. I grew up in Westerville, so it's something where, like, there were a couple things there. It was obviously that, and then also the Underground Railroad was a big thing in Westerville too. Which, if you grew up there, you knew that as a fact because that was all the field trips to the different places, and you learn about all that stuff. But then all I remember is the up in arms everyone was in Westerville, Ohio, when it was actually changed to not being a dry place.
Right.
And I think Old Bag of Nails was the first. It's a kind of a pub type of a place.
Yeah.
Was in Uptown Westerville, and when they went in, it was like there were people like just completely boycotting it because it's like, we're not doing it in our city. And
we don't want that kind of riffraff.
Yeah, you go up a mile and a half over here, and there's like 8 bars. Mm-hmm. Like, really? Like, this is what we're doing here? Like, but that's what happens.
Yeah.
It was good, though.
Doesn't seem to have hurt the city of Westerville.
I think it's helped.
Yeah.
Turns out,
I live in
people like
Clintonville.
drinking.
I live in Clintonville, same place. So, there's spots that are being grandfathered in from years before, but you still have to petition and go to council if you want to open up a spot in Clintonville, and if you have to get a liquor license to open up a joint. So, same thing, but we've expanded as well.
Yeah. What I've always liked about Old Forester is that it's got its own thing going on where, like I've said before, some distilleries, I don't know if you've noticed this, Dino, some distilleries, if you put a bottle in front of me and like didn't tell me what it was, and you put like Knob Creek, Old Forester, Jim Beam, I could pick out which one was which because of the essence that each one of them has. I don't know what it is that what they do, where maybe it's the corn, maybe it's the ingredients or the mash bill specifically, or where they're getting their ingredients, but it's just Old Forester, even in their 80 proof stuff, it's just that brown sugar bomb is present.
I mentioned it earlier, I don't know if we were on or off, but I said dollar for dollar. I mean, these guys.
Yeah.
Even just the regular $25 bottle.
It's not even that though.
That's on the
It's
show.
like $18.
Yeah, whatever that.
It's
Well, maybe $25 for the handle.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Maybe
That's probably right.
But that's just it's a great go-to.
I'm getting an interest.
You're on the 1897 now.
Yeah, I'm on this 1897.
Oh, you're on the 1897.
Jake's moving around here.
Yeah, I like.
I'm still on the first glass.
Tell me when, Dino.
I have a feeling
it'll
we
be
just
overflowing
met the real
if I
Dino
tell you
here.
when.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't
He's
ever,
like,
don't
you
ever
just
say
take the
that.
glass, leave the bottle, we're fine.
Don't
we'll
ever say
figure it
that.
out.
But for this Prohibition style, it's definitely that brown sugar. But this bottled in bond, I always have a
How's
weird.
it compare? Like I haven't had it.
It's lighter.
I think I've had it, but it's been like a year. Or
so we're going from 115 proof down to 100 proof.
Right.
And it really makes a big difference when you're talking about the smell, I haven't tasted it yet because I'm kind of mesmerized by this weird marshmallow thing going on. This toasted marshmallow.
See, because already with this one, it's not nearly as doesn't smell nearly as spicy.
Yeah.
As the 1920.
Yeah.
But
try it. Yeah.
Oh, way lighter.
Yeah.
Way lighter. But nice.
Yeah, very nice.
But nice.
Yeah. Lighter as in less heat? Or,
yes.
Okay.
A lot less heat.
Okay.
A lot less heat.
Yeah. I'm getting that dryness that you were talking about, Steve, in the middle of my tongue and in the back of my throat for sure.
I don't know what problem either one of you have, because I got no dryness in the middle of my tongue anywhere.
You should take another sip.
It's everything.
Yeah, I'm getting dry. Right.
Everything's staying as wet. I don't know. I mean, see a doctor, boys.
Well, yeah, maybe, but we were in the shop last night.
You've been drinking longer than us, so.
I have been. Yeah, I keep forgetting that. That I am. You know, it's funny. This is your 60th episode, right?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
And on April 21st, I will turn 60 years of age. Yeah. So I kind of like the serendipity about it. Shut up.
How was Prohibition?
Huh? Prohibition. It was an awful time. It was an awful time. But we managed. We got through, yes. Thank God.
Like you fought the good fight back then.
Thank God for Capone and the boys. We managed to make it through.
Yeah.
That was Prohibition.
Speaking of which, at the cemetery, I sold a woman a plot that was 90 years old. She was born in 1928.
Oh, wow.
Wait, go. All right.
Yeah, you don't know them.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Speaking of, I was at the cemetery. Yeah, I know that you're.
So there I was with a 90-year-old at the cemetery.
Yeah, I mean, indulge me. Don't give me the Reader's Digest version. Do you sell cemetery plots?
I do.
There it
do
is.
You really?
At Greenlawn.
Should we talk?
If you want, I can get you again.
When was your birthday again?
And I was born in 1959.
All right.
So technically, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Give me a deal.
Yeah.
Is there a whiskey and BS discount?
Yeah, we can do that.
Express checkout.
We can get you in and out real quick.
What if I want cremated? Do you do anything with that? Because I think that's the way. You could pause.
No, I can.
Hey,
we'll go.
Yeah, we can burn you right up. Yeah.
What are you doing later tonight? Just let me whip out my laptop
Didn't even
here.
hesitate.
No, I mean I can do it for you.
My everyday whiskey is I'm a big Jack Daniels fan.
Really?
I love Jack Daniels.
Just regular Jack.
Just regular Jack. Nice and simple. And I always said that when I die, I've got this beautiful antique Jack Daniels bottle from I think the '60s.
Oh wow.
I've got a couple of them, but this one in particular is long and it's got a wide bottom, almost like a carafe. And I said, when I die, I want my ashes put into that bottle. And the joke is, I want to be put into the bottle that probably is going to kick me out before it's all said and done.
That's awesome.
So,
poetic. That's really nice. That's a sweet sentiment.
Yeah. So he likes Jack Daniels.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got a scarf. He's got an awesome fedora.
I want the hat. I saw your hat. The hat. This is my boozing hat.
Yes.
This has been with me for a long time.
Yeah.
When things start getting a little loopy and crazy, I tend to put it on. When so
that's the indicator for everyone else in the room.
Yeah, I got the hat on now, so watch your shit. Yeah.
See, I came in with mine.
And the scarf, I didn't mean the scarf is a little pretentious. I didn't mean to be pretentious. It was actually a little chilly out.
It was.
You're basically Frank Sinatra.
It's so.
Wow.
It's.
I'm not.
I would never.
Can you sing?
I would. Yeah, I can sing, and I love Frank Sinatra. I mean, I love Frank Sinatra.
We have our new best friend there,
and
Dustin.
I've told this story on my podcast, but I'll give you a Reader's Digest version of this one. I wasn't always a Jack drinker. I would drink it like anybody else do, a shot of Jack, whatever.
Right.
But I was a Scotch drinker as well. I drank Glenlivet and a lot of the single malts. Mm-hmm. But I loved Frank Sinatra. I know that Jack was Frank's favorite drink. And I introduced my friends to Sinatra and the Rat Pack and all that. And we had a deal. When Frank dies, at the time when it was still open, it was the Blue Danube down on campus. We meet at the Blue Danube. So Frank dies. we find out, we meet at the Blue Danube, and we go on a Jack Daniels tear from like 11 o'clock Friday morning till Sunday. I mean, we just, and all of a sudden now I'm a Jack convert. And someone said that when you drank scotch, you were so nice. And then when Frank died, it's like his spirit went into your body and you became an asshole.
Is that true?
No, I don't think so.
Not the Frank part, the asshole part.
No. I mean, no, I don't think of it. I mean, who amongst us, gentlemen, let's be honest, have not had asshole moments?
Oh, we all, I mean...
Most of it's on the podcast. It's literally live.
Cannot take
You're
credit.
in very good company, let me put it that way.
It's documented.
Cannot take credit for being a so-called dick from time to time. In relationships, in life, we've been assholes.
Yes.
To claim that I've never been an asshole and I've never been stupid or I've never done anything wrong is a lie.
Yes.
Is a lie. We're human.
Exactly.
We have our moments.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm sure I've been an asshole from time to time, and I'm sure I was an asshole when I was drinking scotch from time to time. But I was probably a more sophisticated asshole when I was drinking the scotch than I was when I was drinking the Jack Daniels.
You were quieter.
I was a quieter asshole. I was an asshole with a softer...
You were smarter.
I was smarter.
You're a smarter asshole.
That's
exactly
asshole.
it.
That's awesome. Well, I think this is an amazing kind of smorgasbord that we have here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying the other one.
Yeah, and I'm probably...
When are you going to get around to it?
Getting there.
I think I'm going to dip
I'm doing
into
work,
it a
too.
little
I know,
bit.
you opened up talking about being present, and then the whole time you're doing all this. So,
No, it's a valid point.
But if it's work, if it's part of this, I understand.
It is.
Because Hansberry's the same way. Our producer, he's working on stuff and moving stuff around and checking things out. So I'm not calling you out.
No, we were talking about Jake and I. And
if you're sexting while we're doing this, then I'm gonna be offended.
Again, I'm doing work. God damn! Come on, man.
I'm not work. I'm working in. I'm working in.
No, hi, Liz.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Hi, Liz.
She's inside right now.
Still, hi, Liz.
It's
a joke.
It's
a joke. Unless he's sexting you. Unless you're sexting Liz. That's very romantic.
Here I am, like, trying to take more and more sips of this 115, right? You know? Like, I'm getting to it. Jesus.
No, I did pour you a big glass, though. It's hard with these rocks glasses because they're huge.
Yeah.
You're just fast, Dino.
Yeah, I mean...
It's hard when it's good.
It's hard when it's good.
There's a shirt for you.
That's right. You think
is that backwards?
Yeah, it's good when it's hard. It seemed like it should make more sense.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Liz.
I beat you to it. And wait a second, what'd you mean by that? God damn it. Shit. Okay. All right. So you guys have been smoking the Perdomo the whole time. And you made the switch, so, I mean, did it go, how do you think it went so far before we get into the cigar?
The cigar?
With the Prohibition.
Okay, I don't know as much about cigars as you do.
Yeah.
I told you guys that from the get-go. Once again, my brother-in-law is a huge cigar fan, and he's always, here, smoke this, you like this. I don't know. This seems to be good to me. You said it's a 10th anniversary of the champagne. I know about wrappers a little bit. What's a darker Maduro wrapper?
So this is a Connecticut shade. It's a U.S. Connecticut wrapper and then Nicaraguan binder and filler. So Nick Perdomo is based out of Nicaragua. So I mean, it's something that you're gonna have, I think, a little bit more body than most like real mild cigars. Mm-hmm. But it does have that. When you say Maduro, that's a shade, right? So it's a darker shade. Where this is going to be that Connecticut shade, which is used typically for a very like lighter shade cigar wrapper leaf. And this one actually does come out of the U.S. Connecticut.
And is this supposed to be a heavier cigar?
No.
Or a lighter cigar? Lighter cigar? Okay,
mild to medium.
Because I'm smoking it fast. And it seems like the heavier cigars, I would...
It'll give you some punch.
Yeah, this one seems like it's going, much like the whiskey, is going down smooth.
Yeah.
I think the prohibition style really kind of overcame the cigar itself, where there wasn't much taste to it. But going to the bottled and bond, I think it's a great pairing, if you will, where it kind of mellows. They're both not mellow in a sense, but the flavors interact in a way that's it's really good. It's very rich but light in the same sense. If that, yeah.
Have you guys always been cigar smokers? When did you start smoking cigars?
I really got into it about 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah, and you, Jake?
I've been smoking cigars for almost 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
2 years?
How are you?
Yeah, no, I don't. I smoke them from time. I smoke them
Winston Reds.
on occasion.
Yeah.
I have a humidor at home that's got cigars that my brother-in-law gave me, and I try to keep them fresh and so forth. But I enjoy them. Do you guys actually have time? I mean, now we have time to smoke a cigar, and I think that's why I've been smoking cigarettes. God help me, since I was 18 years old. But cigars, just I like the fact that you can sit and enjoy a cigar, but I seldom have that long stretch of time where I can just sit and enjoy it.
Do you do so? Go back to the so you were in radio for 20-some years.
Yeah.
So take us back to before the smoking ban, like the workplace in Ohio.
Oh yeah.
Did you smoke in the studio?
Was
that a thing? I mean, like while you're recording. I mean, was there? Because I know it's not great for probably recording equipment. No. But I mean, it's one of those things. I don't recall back in like the 80s, 90s, especially the 90s. I assume they were starting to come out of that. But I mean, did you smoke in the studio?
There were times before I started at the radio station in 1994. Prior to that, I was doing stand-up, and I would go to radio stations to do interviews. And sometimes in those radio stations, from 89 to like 91, 92, if the jock, the morning show person smoked, they were smoking in the studio.
Just as they're doing it, just chain smoking.
As they're doing it, yeah, just like you see in the movies from back in the day. When I came to Sunny 95, there was no smoking in the studio, but there was smoking in the building, in the break room. Okay. I mean, you go into the break room, and it was just a...
So that's your quick hit, right? So that's your cigarette side of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the opposite is doing this with the cigars. Is that it's the same thing as people that smoke cigarettes all the time, but it's a little bit more controlled. It's a little bit more relaxed.
Sure, it is.
You do
it's
it for
very
different
relaxed.
reasons a lot of the times. You know what I mean? Like you're smoking cigarettes because I assume at this point you like the flavor. Like you're used to the flavor. It's like beer is an acquired taste type thing when you grow up. So cigarettes much the same way. Now it's like it's something that you're used to.
It's something I'm used to, and it becomes a habitual thing from the standpoint is like it just when I go on a flight for 4 hours, I'm not jonesing for a cigarette for 4 hours. So I'm like, okay, I don't really need a cigarette. So it becomes part of whatever rituals you have.
Yeah.
Like having a cup of coffee in the morning, a cigarette after a meal. When I write, I drink and I smoke, and 90% of that cigarette burns in the ashtray, but I'll take a puff off of it at some point, and and that's it. So it becomes sadly, because I know it's bad for me, it does become a part of you in some way, shape, or form. As much like cigars do. Like I see your videos and I see you smoking a cigar. It fits you.
Right.
You look like a badass when you're smoking a cigar. I mean, you look like a badass anyway. He does look like a badass, right?
He's got a bald head and beard.
Really
deep voice.
He's got the deep voice and he smokes
There's
a
a
cigar.
newsletter that I subscribed to a while back.
The badass newsletter?
Yeah.
The badass. Yeah. You do, but it fits you. And I always think that cigars, like you're smoking one, they maybe it's a romantic version for me, but they designate some sort of power.
Yeah.
If you got a cigar in your mouth, you got all of a sudden you're kind of powerful. I think Oprah smokes cigars.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
I think I do. I think Oprah smokes cigars. I think Oprah, when in her locked away office, is sitting on a big throne that is shaped like the world, and she's sitting on it and she's smoking a cigar, and her voice completely changes. She's like, "I'm Oprah, see? I'm Oprah.
She apparently has a different accent.
I'm Oprah. I'm queen of the world. Dr. Phil, he'd be nothing if it weren't for me. Dr. Oz, nothing. All the doctors, I got them all under my belt. I'm Oprah, see?
That's probably it.
She becomes Italian.
Yeah. She's that's right there.
Immediately.
Oprah was just smoking a cigar in close quarters. So, but I'm saying, it suits you.
I think with cigars, even cigarettes, right? Like going back to that, where if you're smoking while having a conversation or doing something.
I'm a light cigarette. I'm a light cigarette while we're talking to show you the difference. I mean, I don't feel uncomfortable smoking a cigar at all. But
light up.
Smoking a cigarette, this is a part of who I am.
It's an extension.
It is an extension, right?
So that's what I'm saying. Like with a cigar, like what we find being in the cigar shop or part of the cigar community is that it slows down the conversation sometimes.
It does.
It does because and you talk about like the whole badass thing. Cigarettes are much the same way because I think of you talk about like the being romantic about the whole vibe of smoking in general. Like Mad Men was a big one recently in recent years that you see the way that those actors utilize what you just said as far as the extension of their personality.
It's part of their personality.
As you're making a point, you're holding this and you have this thing dancing,
with
smoke dancing around, right?
Yeah.
So they're pointing with a cigarette and then you ask them a question and they do the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And then they answer. It's like this automatic dramatic pause.
Yeah.
Which is just built in.
Or they take that same dramatic pause when they're lighting it. Like, you ask me a question.
Yeah.
Ask me a question. Just any question. Just whatever.
How long have you owned that hat? Right?
Yeah.
This hat?
yeah.
That was good.
The whole time you're lighting,
that was good.
and the whole time you're lighting, you're like, "What's the wittiest thing I can say back?" I can say I got it when I was.
Let me tell you about this hat.
It's a super boring story, but no, you like this hat.
You get the point I'm trying to make. The madman point.
It also gives you time to think because Dino pointed out the fact that like I had a book and he's got to do that too, and it's like because I can't bullshit like Steve.
Well, drinks are much the same way, right?
Right.
A cocktail, drinking a whiskey or whatever, and you ask, and you're like, you're about to take a drink, and someone's asking a question, and
it's a great pause for.
And then you look at the glass, and and then you look back up, and you answer the question.
Exactly.
I mean, there's just automatic dramatic effect that just goes along with it.
It goes with it.
That was my biggest problem, or that was our biggest problem when we were doing like the live with the whiskey tasting,
right?
And doing it live and seeing how because we don't want to have dead air, right? But having to come up with notes real fast, I normally taste it before we got started, and then I could kind of configure it that way. It would keep rolling, just that was more simultaneous. But I was still enjoying it. It was just kind of it's just an interesting way to do it, I think.
It is. And before we go too far into it, I do want to thank Tinderbox for the Perdomo champagne. I mean,
yes, thank you.
So give you guys a little bit of, I guess, information about the cigar. We talked about the U.S. Connecticut wrapper, which is something that a lot of people don't know as far as tobacco, that Connecticut is a huge hotbed for tobacco for cigars.
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of people know. A lot of the major companies have used Connecticut seed in Ecuador mainly because it's cheaper to grow it there and harvest it and keep the prices down as opposed to doing it in the U.S. obviously. But Connecticut, absolutely. There's a river valley there that they do all this. And the soil's great. The climate is good. Now they have one growing season, as opposed to being down south where some of the Nicaragua, Dominican, Honduras, they'll do multiple growing seasons in a year. But in Connecticut, obviously, they have the one because of the seasons. But what comes out of it is fantastic, and it's very highly sought after. And this, so again, if you have true Connecticut seed grown in Connecticut, wrapper leaf, so it's called shade grown. I don't know, Dino, since you said you're a little bit of a novice as far as cigars, so you hear sun grown and you hear shade. Connecticut shade is not necessarily always used just because of the shade of color, but they legitimately and literally draped the fields with this cheesecloth. So they have these posts up and they put this cheesecloth over the field of tobacco. That is like basically putting a sunscreen on over top of these tobacco plants growing up. So they grow a little bit, sometimes bigger, because they're really searching for that, but they stay a lighter shade and they don't get as many nutrients, so that tobacco stays a bit milder. Even the Lajero, even the top primings of it, like the tobacco plant, as you get higher, you usually have a little bit more strength. But if you have this cheesecloth over it, that's going to keep some of the sun pumping in those nutrients to make it a stronger leaf. That's where you see this on a lot of the milder cigars. The milder cigars, then they'll basically, a lot of the strength comes from the filler, so they blend it with filler leaves that don't have as much strength to it because it won't be balanced, right? It'll be a weird tasting cigar.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting, and that's something that, like I said, being a novice, I would not know and appreciate by smoking this cigar.
And so with this one, with the champagne, I think he did it. So you saw when you unwrapped it, right? It had that kind of yellow cellophane. Mm-hmm. Typically, when you see a yellow cellophane on it, that means it's been aged a very long time. So if you have a cigar in your humidor that has this cellophane, the plastic on it, what you'll have is that over time, you let it age for 5, 10 years, or whatever it is, or you come across a cigar that's been in a humidor for a very long time in a shop, there'll be a natural yellowing from the tobacco and the age and the humidity and everything in that clear cellophane.
Does it stay safe in the cellophane?
Yeah, so they use breathable cellophane.
So if I have a cigar that's been sitting in a humidor that's wrapped in cellophane for 5 years, that's still a good cigar?
Should be good. If there's no mold or anything like that.
I don't have to dump it? I don't have
No. So, but that's the whole thing. I think that's where he came up with that whole 10th year anniversary. So he's the only one that I know of that put a purpose to the cellophane being yellowed and manufacturing to put that on top of the cigar so it looks like, that whole 10 years, those first 10 years doing this business. And Nick Perdomo has the reputation for really being not only a stand-up guy, one of the sharpest guys in the industry as far as memory, as far as, if you meet him, he will remember that, or you might have to jog it a little bit. And I don't know if you're like that with, being in the radio for 20 years, if you had a guest, and you said you started in 94, if, 1998, you did an interview with someone that you see him today, and you're like, how's everything going with this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it comes back to you. Some people are very, very good at that. Nick Perdomo is much the same. And so so he's been in business now for over 25 years. He really, for everyone out there that doesn't know Nick, I mean, check out his stuff because he's really fought for the industry in general, much like a lot of these distilleries.
I was going to say, how does cigars stack up as far as the competition? Every distiller out there is trying to get their brand, their name out there, drink our whiskey, follow us. How does that work in the cigar world? I mean, how competitive is it in the cigar world?
Extremely competitive. And there's just, and we just recently, 2 years ago, now almost 3 years ago, the FDA got involved. So in 2015, right before the Obama administration had left, right? So the omnibus budget bill included cigars, premium cigars, and pipe tobacco into the Tobacco Act of 2009, which was originally exempting premium cigars and pipe tobacco.
Interesting.
So they kind of threw that in with dozens of other issues, yada, yada, yada. But before that, there were different tax laws that went in from a federal level, one being called S-chip. And that was something that Nick Perdomo made it a very, very strong, he made a very strong stance that he's like, I am eating that tax. So it's not going to translate to consumers, and even before that, it's not translating to the retailers. So I'm eating that. And so he's been very, very active in fighting the things that come, just like we're drinking the whole, bottle and bond,
right.
We're doing the prohibition. I mean, much in the same light, there's different government actions going down on the other sin taxes of the tobacco industry. And Nick Perdomo, anyone that meets him, typically pretty blown away, real nice guy. When he came last time to Columbus for our shop, it was probably about 7 years ago, and it was to our Tinderbox at Easton, and he took time at every table to sit and talk, and he spent time with them as the event went on, and that was the feedback I got the entire night, was the fact that he was like, man, Nick was so cool. Like, not only did he give his little spiel, but then he talked to us for 15 minutes. So you had this guy where he has that interest all the way to ground level, not only manufacturing, but ground level on the other side of it, where you have this guy this is his lifeline now. This is his life. It's what puts food on the table, and he really, really appreciates every aspect of it, from seed all the way to us smoking in the garage.
Let me ask you this. As we see in the whiskey world, we see a lot of newcomers trying to break in, new bottles that try to break into the whiskey world. How hard is it for a new cigar to break into that world?
So it's been very, very difficult as of recent years because of that FDA regulation. The fact that they are regulating the industry, we've talked about on the podcast before, like, for example, BS, the way, that's basically Brian and Steve.
My lovely parting gifts?
Your parting gifts. So I'm the S of that, so it's Brian and Steve, so this is something that we did.
Oh, this is you?
Yeah. So.
And there's a crane on there, if you noticed.
There's a crane on there.
I did not.
So yeah, there's a story to it and everything.
So you're one of the newcomers.
One of the newcomers that we completely just stunted our growth by saying, all right, we're going to stay in our shop by doing this instead of trying to wholesale it, because you have to really, really pay to play as far as get it FDA tested and all that stuff. But the mess of it all is as in a lot of government circumstances, I guess, for a lot of these things, where they're still not testing. It's now on a 3-year delay on doing all this stuff. So that's where we have an issue where if that wasn't in play, we could just go ahead. We're working with manufacturers that we know, we trust. We could just start selling it to other people. But if we don't pay to get it tested by the FDA, much like a lot of these newcomers,
right?
Basically, when that delay is over, if they actually go through with everything about this regulation, then you'll have to basically pay 6 figures for every blend. You have to pay 6 figures. Like basically, they test for every blend, every size of every blend. Wow. They do all these testing, and then also the packaging and everything else, and you can apply for it. That's why you don't see new cigarettes on the market. You're a cigarette smoker. You don't see any new cigarettes anymore, do you?
Not often.
Yeah, you saw them basically in 2009, 2010. There was this big influx of these new Marlboro everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. It's because they had to get it out before the certain date, and after that, they're done. There's no competition anymore. There's no one that basically the FDA can sit on these applications and take the money, and so that's where it's very difficult. Where I don't know all the ins and outs of the liquor side of it, but you can do that without necessarily having to pay those fees.
Yeah, I can put my own blend together of whiskey if I wanted to, and started to and put it out.
Yeah.
People say, why don't you do a whiskey business whiskey? I'm like, why? Why?
Right, it'd be a fun project for you, right?
It's so saturated right now, and there's so many good things out there. I doubt very much that my brain could put together the proper mash bill.
that would figure it out.
That would win people over. Interesting, very interesting.
So with Perdomo, though, I will say this: we had Nicholas, who is Nick's son, who's been growing. Like, he went to college, he did all that, came back to the family business, and so the future of this company, for anyone out there that's a Perdomo fan, it looks like that Nicholas was not given the keys to the kingdom. He started in the warehouse, then he was like, inside sales support, then he was inside sales, then he was doing all this stuff. The cool story, and this is something for everyone out there to really kind of appreciate how all this works. He came in the shop, and this was within the last month. So, but at the sales meeting, the national sales meeting, Nick, the father, the patriarch of this family, right? So he started out of a garage, just like a lot of the American startups, you know what I mean? Like, so he did all that stuff. But now, so Nicholas is called up in front of the entire sales meeting, all the salespeople, the staff, like everything else. He's called up, and basically Nick says, this is a real proud moment as a father. I want to announce that, Nicholas, my son, is now the national sales manager. And Nicholas is like, I was like, well, that's cool, man. Like, that must have been pretty cool. He's like, I had no idea.
Uh-huh.
That's how this family works, is that it's like, you're not just given the keys. It's, you bust your ass. You went to college. That was part of it. I know you want to be part of the business, but you got to go do that. Now you can come back. Oh, yeah, by the way, you're going to be, that classic, American, family story. You're sweeping the warehouse floors. Now you're stocking the shelves. Now you're doing this. Now you're learning every aspect of it. So when you actually do get this, if it works out, if you actually can do all these things, that's when people will respect you, and that's when you'll respect what they do.
Interesting.
And it's very cool.
Cigar and whiskey, same thing. We went to a tasting with Eddie Russell from Wild Turkey.
Recently. We missed you.
We missed
we were at the 10 o'clock.
You were at the 10 o'clock. So that's because they added one.
Yeah. That was Jake's birthday, actually.
And I'm sure Eddie talked about the same thing, that his son was coming up, and his son was he made his son go through kind of the same deal, same drill.
Jimmy.
He still talks about Jimmy, too.
Yeah. Huh?
He still talks about, You're saying Jimmy did that for Eddie?
No, Eddie was talking about his son.
Yeah.
His son
and he had that from Jimmy. Jimmy
right,
was
right,
like,
right,
yeah,
right. And he did the same thing with his son. Like, learn it as you're coming up.
And every idea that Eddie had, Eddie's like, I'm going to do this. And, and I love the fact that, like Jimmy had said to us, hey, you're fucking it up, man.
Yeah.
Every idea is like, no. Because Jimmy was like set. Like, we do this, and this, and that's what we do. Because I want to do it this way.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm sure, like, with Nicholas versus Nick, there'll be some new things that come up, much like the Russell family. But it's interesting to see that.
A lot of comparisons.
So it's a fun thing. So if you guys out there have not smoked Perdomo cigars, I mean, it's definitely something that you want to try, because not only are they good cigars, they're made by good people, they support the industry, and they will support the industry all the way, especially to the consumer.
I really wish that we had the 20th.
We'll do that.
In the shop.
We do now.
We do now?
Mm-hmm.
See, that was my first cigar was the BS Gold, and then my second cigar was the Perdomo 20th. Now they're advertising that they age them in bourbon barrels and stuff like that, but they've been doing that for years. But because of the boom, right? It's
marketing.
Yeah,
it's
marketing. And it's amazing. But they've always been great, honestly. I like Perdomo. I like this cigar, even though it has a Connecticut shade wrapper leaf. And
I couldn't remember what the Old Foresters were like. So I picked 2 mild to medium cigars tonight.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, the Prohibition style, the 1920, it kicked this cigar's ass.
I know, that's what I was saying.
This cigar was,
did not stack
I don't
up.
smoke Winston Reds or Winston Lights, but I'm pretty sure it was about like smoking a Winston Light, compared to the Prohibition. I mean, it kind of went with it. Like you're still smoking while you're drinking, but you're not getting anything. Now that I'm drinking the 1897, it's now
it's kind of a harmony.
Now we're back in it.
Yeah.
Now you're drinking and smoking. You taste everything. You go back and forth.
Yeah, I do like the 1897.
I do too.
It's kind of like
it's an easy drink.
That was thick and meaty, and this one's kind of lighter, so it's kind of like refreshing.
Yeah. I agree.
The next time I drink these two, I'll switch it. Start with the 1897.
And work your way up.
Yeah.
It'll probably build like crazy. Like if we were smart about it, it would have built into something.
Don't put intelligence into the mix.
But, if you guys
that's where I nerd out. Like I'm the
don't put intelligence.
But, I encourage everyone to listen to the whiskey business. I mean, he always has the guest bottle, and the guest bottle was the 1920. So that's what we're drinking.
Right.
No,
exactly.
Exactly.
So. All right, so we're saving it right now. Yes. Go ahead and explain that.
We had a spell on episode 2 or 3 where we lost everything. Mm-hmm. So now we stop about halfway, save it real quick, and then get right back into it.
While we still have the Facebook Live going.
Yeah.
So Facebook Live is still on?
Facebook Live never stops.
Facebook Live never stops, so, man, I hope you're enjoying it, people.
Yeah, they are, it seems.
I am. I'm having a blast.
My dad had a fun.
Hell yeah.
Did you see my dad's
Oprah Cagney?
Yeah. We were talking about Oprah with the cigar. He said Oprah Cagney.
Oprah Cagney, yeah, see?
So being actively present, Steve.
Just right into it.
Yeah.
Just fucking.
I'm amped. I'm amped about this because I'm interested to hear about Dino's book and to see kind of where his mind goes. And when we were talking about this yesterday and messaging over Instagram, is kind of like we like our guests to interpret it however they want it to, because that's what always makes for a good conversation.
Well, I judging from, you said being actively present and being present. Is there a difference? Because here's my thoughts on being present. Being present, in my opinion, is completely selfless. Okay? Being present, if you're being present in a selfless manner, that's when you're truly being present. If you're being present because you have to be there and not because you want to be there, well, now you're just in play.
Yeah. I think we're saying the exact same thing. We just added in a word.
Yeah.
Yes, but I see the difference though.
You know what I'm saying?
And what I was saying, you already asked me a little bit because I'm doing it right now, right? So I'm back through it.
No, but you're doing stuff for the podcast.
Yeah, but
I get
the point,
that.
I would love to be
teasing
all here. No, I get that, but what my answer is that something that I'm working on. So when I look at being actively present, the biggest thing for me is that there takes some active will. There's some action there. Where being present, if you're just honestly, genuinely being there, and and not feeling like you have to be there. My point is that sometimes you actually do. You have to actively be there. So for me, it's the action of shutting everything off, everything else off. It's one of those things that you may be a very good listener. You may be someone that is typically there. You're enjoying that moment. You're giving it 100%. But being actively present is actually looking at yourself in that moment, or if you got a lot of things going on in your life, there's a point of recentering to a point where you have to be actively present because naturally you're not going to be there. You're thinking about other things. So and someone will look at you sometimes. That's your telltale. Is that hey, are you listening?
Yeah. Right.
Hey, wait, come back. Where'd you go in this conversation? Especially people that know you. You're not being yourself because you're not listening the same way. Your eyes are wandering a little bit more. You're looking down. So in this arena right here, you're sitting in the garage. We're not doing the podcast, but you're sitting there and you're kind of looking at your drink a little bit more. And it's you. Someone says something to you, but if you're gonna be actively present, for me, and that's what I'm really working on. It's as simple as even like when I'm drinking a whiskey, trying to do something for here, or if I'm actually there's no camera going, there's no podcast, there's no anything. It's just literally, the other night, Brad, Jake, and I sitting around, we're trying a new whiskey or whatever, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, normally, if I've got 10 things on my mind, and we're like, what do you think of that? I'm like, I really like it, or it's really diving into it. It's smelling it. It's. Hang on. What? You take a sip of it. You're like. You do look up. You're thinking about it because at that point, at that moment, you're doing what you're talking about. You're not just doing that as a motion. You're not just doing it while thinking about other things, because that's what I've been struggling with, like I think a lot of people will.
Why do you struggle with it?
Well, no, for me there's a lot of like moving parts. So I had the Smoking 10 event, so when you have these big things going on, Smoking 10 event, I just moved. So all these like big things that take the big part of my daily brain functions, and you still have to go to work, you still want to be there for your friends, you still want to enjoy some time, but if all you're doing is if all I'm doing is thinking about what's the next thing I have to do, what am I not doing at the house? What am I missing at the 10 event? What am I missing? And I'm always thinking about that. And at the same time, it's like, well, I got to go to the gym tomorrow. Like, God, I'm gonna not sleep. And you're just constantly just going. It's not out of disrespect.
No.
It's legitimately you get lost sometimes, and all of a sudden it's this that I picture that little like. It's not quicksand, but it's like this like little tidal wave. It's like this slow current. You know what I mean? That normally you can just be floating. Yeah, we talk about metaphors a lot.
Jesus.
If you're in a pool, right? If you're in a pool, right?
You get sucked in. You get sucked out.
My old house.
Steven is metaphors.
No,
That's
my
why
old house.
I love metaphors.
My old house, I had a pool. My ex and I had a pool, and you just sit there and float, right? And if everything's going well, you sit there and float. You maybe light a cigar, you have a drink going, and you just kind of just float around the pool. You look up at the sky, it's a sunny day, and all that stuff. But all of a sudden, you hear something like going on with the skimmer. You're like, what was that? And you start thinking about what's
wrong with my pool?
Yeah, fuck, like what's going on with that?
Yeah, I paid a lot of money for this pool. What's going on with this?
And then you hear your phone ring, or you're thinking about, oh man, like fuck it. It's that the age old thing where it's like, oh, it's Sunday, and you're trying to relax on Sunday, but all you think about is Monday morning at work.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, these are, I'm trying to like dance around. I'm trying to like throw everything.
That's
at you guys.
That's a great example.
It's one of those things, right?
I hated Sundays. I used to hate Sundays
because you're not actively present
because
in it.
You're
thinking
about Monday.
I guess that's the translation.
No, I get it. I get it.
Well, it's really talking about the future. Like we're such in a day and age where everything's either like if you want to be successful, it's like it's almost taught that you have to be calculated and then you have to be thinking forward. And then if you constantly are doing that, you're never really present. And that's really what we're talking about. Like I do that all the time. Like you just said, Sundays.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I hated Sundays. Because I was thinking about the schoolwork on Monday. I was thinking about all this shit.
Did you have an 8 a.m. class?
I didn't.
Oh,
I did.
I was smart.
Fucking worse.
Worse. And it was physics. Who schedules physics
8 a.m.
on a Monday morning?
Nerd.
Yeah, no, I flunked it.
There you go.
I did not make most of those classes.
No, it's just interesting to think about. And the first thing that I think about with like being actively present, and that's why I said, because I know Dino's one of those people that dives down into it. And that's why I said like we just added in a word because you're actually really thinking of it being actively there.
Well,
because I think saying if you say that you're being present, I think it's and it's like no offense to your book at all.
No.
I just mean when I hear that, I just think it's plain because we can all be present. Like you can go somewhere and be with friends, but like you said, Steve, you're looking at your glass, you're looking at your phone. It's like when I like first got my first iPhone and my parents got mad at me and I was sitting at the table with my phone like texting. You know what I mean? So, but I wasn't there, but I was still there, and that's where this day and age with all of our phones, it's kind of gone towards that you're not really listening, and that's why I love the fact that that's why I want to say that we transitioned from last week to this week effectively because the communication is the biggest thing where you're actually talking to someone, you're listening, you start asking questions, you're engaged is the biggest key. Really.
And that's a huge part of being present, but I guess I did take it a little deeper. In this particular essay in the book, being present is about those moments when, let me give you an example. If my mother is coming into town for Greek Easter, I will go to church with my mother. Do I want to go to church? No. Will I be present at church? Yes. But why am I really being present? No, because I'm there because my mother wants me to be.
Right.
Being present is those moments, are those moments when you are there because you want to be. Your significant other has a friend who passes away that you don't know, but you go there and you hold her hand. That's being present.
Right.
You don't know this person, but you're there for them.
Yeah.
Those are the moments what I mean by being present. You go on a long vacation drive and you know, I'll drive if you want me to. You drive. Because you want to, not because you have to, because you want to, but you're present. You're there. There's an emotional factor to being present that is far deeper than just showing up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're just showing that you give a shit.
Yeah. And so what I said before about being present, if you're there because you want to be there, that is truly being present. If you're there because you feel you have to be there, you're not really present. You're just being responsible.
And for me, that's where the active side of it comes.
And that is where the active side
because
comes in.
I've been present and initially not wanted to be there.
Yeah, not the same.
For sure.
Not the same.
It's not the same. That's for me. That's what I'm
good.
saying.
Good for you.
That's where the effort comes in.
That's good for you, but it's not. It's
so that's
it lacks a little sincerity, maybe.
It
for
does.
lack of a better word.
It does. So that's where I'm saying, like, that's my whole thing is that if I'm present and I'm just there. And I'll, like, again, I can say kind of what I am a little bit reiterating what I'm saying, but that's a great example. So you show up, right?
Right.
Sundays, NFL Sundays.
Okay.
Hey, honey, I got a couple's baby shower. which is a thing now.
It is. Which by the way, I hate.
Hang on.
Which is also another essay.
Yeah. Hang on. Side note.
That's amazing.
That's not a thing.
Yeah,
Couples baby shower is still not a thing. It shouldn't be a thing. That's a baby shower.
It's a baby shower.
That's it.
Can we stray off the path for just a second?
Of course.
And giddy up on what you said. Yes. If we have to go to the couple's baby shower, I think there should be a rule. Okay? I think there should be a rule that the biggest gift gets to go home first. I think once the gift is opened, you get to leave the baby shower.
That's amazing.
Hence, the reason for getting the largest gift.
Why would you buy my baby a car?
Yes, get the car.
Honey,
get the car
let's
for the
go.
child.
Yeah,
Let's go. We got your baby a car.
You guys
We're out of here. I love Don't get me wrong.
A new car. That's yours. See ya.
I love babies. When that baby is born, I love babies. I will hold it. I will burp it. I will change it. But the baby shower itself, no.
All right.
No. Largest gift gets to go home first.
So this is a prime example of being actively present.
Yeah, but not sincerely.
So, I use it because I've been there. I've been these circumstances where it's like NFL Sunday, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's like, there's a TV on in the background.
Not the same.
Over there. And, they're opening gifts and like you just see it. Like, I know this is stereotypical, but it's like,
how many oohs and ahs do you have in you?
You see it. Like, the presents are getting opened over here. And then there's I was at this baby shower. There's a TV behind them.
Right.
And it's like you literally can see all the guys and some of the girls like literally being like watching up there, and then like something big happens, and it doesn't sync up with a gift being open,
with the ooh and ah,
and it's awkward as fuck.
Yeah.
Like it's just like oh yeah, and it's like this really delayed, like up and down, like
one of the gifts is like 6 months worth of diapers. You're like, yeah, like my 6 months of diapers. Good for you. I was looking at the play, but
this is all you guys.
You'll get there.
I will. I'm just not there yet.
So that's my whole thing, is that with being actively present is when you shut that part off. Like literally that's the whole thing, is that you want to be actively present. So if you're in a situation you don't want to be in, but you're there for good reason, fucking just be there. You know what I mean? What for that circumstance? Watch the highlights later.
You are.
Turn your alerts off your phone. You know what I mean? Don't do that, because that's the other thing where people are, in those situations where it's like you
like
kind of see them
the
like doing this. Now I got an Apple Watch, and now it's like I got alerts there. It's like you look even more rude because now I'm looking at like, oh, you got to be somewhere. Like, no, I got an alert on the Bears game. Oh yeah, no matter what I say, I'm rude. Like if I was just looking at the time, I'm still rude. So. Yeah, that's the active part.
That is the active part, for sure.
Yeah, it's
Jake.
Yeah, I mean, if I may.
Sorry.
No, it's great because
you hit a nerve.
Well, yeah.
I feel like I hit a nerve in anyone watching. That has been there.
Well, that normally happens for us sometimes, and that's what's great.
My gosh,
that's what's great about the podcast. No, it's hilarious, and I wish that I could kind of relate to your guy, and I will be there. But
you've never been to a couple's baby shower? You've never been to a baby shower?
When I was really young. I'm 24.
He's 24.
Oh, Jesus.
So he's got.
See, everybody. That's the first reaction everyone always says.
24. I got psychological issues older than you.
I believe that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I think the biggest thing with me, and especially like people my age, it's the phones, right?
It is the phones.
It's the phones.
It's your generation.
It's social media, and that's fine. And I used to be really, really bad with it with my old job, but that was because that's what I did.
Your old job. How many jobs have you had? You're 24.
I've had 4.
4?
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I used to be like John. Like during the podcast, I would do the photography, and while you guys are talking, like I'm watching him because I'm interested in it, because that's what I did. And it was, so I was always constantly looking at what was going on with the feed, like with the podcast that I worked for, and it just kind of evolved into like always looking at your phone, always looking at my phone. And when I think about it, Steve will even say now where I just, like you saw me earlier, I'm sure, you know, where I just went like that.
Yeah.
Where I just like shut, and we try to look at the feed like so we can,
sure,
you know,
and
converse
I
with our people.
I get it.
But
you're doing Facebook Live.
Yeah.
You got a lot of elements going on. You got a lot of balls.
It's different.
Yeah, but for me, it's like, well, I already know that's there, so I don't really need to look at my phone. But you
can't help yourself.
Yeah, but I have to be like, just like leave it alone. Like even on the weekends, I'll turn off my phone for a day because I don't.
Wow, that's brave.
I
That's
don't
bold.
want to be.
That's
I
bold.
don't want to be bothered.
You can actually go a whole day. People don't freak out when they can't get a hold of you because that's the generation we're at right now.
Yeah.
There was a time, gentlemen, and I am older than both of you. There was a time. I will play that
If you
card.
listen to the audio, you can't tell.
I will play that
Video,
card.
maybe.
I will play that card right now. I will play that card. There was a time where you called somebody and you used to get something called a busy signal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you got a busy signal, you couldn't reach them. That's it. You couldn't get a hold of them. You had to redial and try again.
And then you redial and it just rings through. You're like, that motherfucker.
Yeah, constantly. There was a time.
Mom, pick up the phone.
There was a time where you were not so easily attained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful time in life.
I know.
Where you could actually, you know, be gone for a minute and nobody freaked out.
Right.
You know, if they had to get a hold of you, eventually they would. But now, if you send a text message and you don't respond in what they consider to be an appropriate amount of time, where are you? What are you doing? Where have you been? What's going on?
Yeah. Are you okay?
You leave a voicemail message. You don't respond to a voicemail message.
Right.
So forth and so on. You know, yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And
Where are you? What are you doing? What's going on? How come you haven't responded to me in the last 5 minutes?
Yeah, and I think that's a little.
Is something wrong?
Yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous. Where
It's gotten crazy. I mean, and I've gotten sucked into that world as well.
You have to.
If you want to move along and be part of it, yeah.
Yeah, especially with the social media and what we're doing, you know, with Whiskey Business and Bourbon BS, you just have to do it. And there's been weeks where we either post a lot, where it's like every day, or we post like once every couple days, and it's kind of like what's ever going on in our lives. And I know just from like my experience dealing with my other podcasts, like the weekends.
You have another podcast?
Well, I didn't, but I was doing.
Oh, you're working on a podcast.
Yeah, I was doing the videography and stuff for it, and I just noticed when I was doing that, like I said, I was just engulfed in all the social media. I was constantly looking at feeds and stuff, and what was coming out of it and everything, like at the post podcast. And especially during the weekends, we learned that was like the biggest. That's where you ramp up, where people are looking at their phones and stuff like that. And it kind of creates, when you're in a line of business like this, it kind of puts you in a different perspective where you're doing this while you're trying to do other things, right? You have a life. You're trying to be entrepreneurial, but you're also trying to be present. In your own life, and sometimes it conflicts, and it sucks.
Do you have a personal Facebook page?
Yeah.
Do you have a personal Facebook page?
Absolutely, yeah.
I do not.
Really?
The podcast has a Facebook page.
Right.
I have Twitter and I have email. That's it.
Personal
email.
Okay.
Personal Twitter.
Yeah, podcast. Facebook, Instagram, everything.
Yeah, everything.
The whole gambit,
Instagram and Facebook is all Whiskey Business.
Yeah,
It's not Dino Tripodis Instagram. It's Whiskey Business Instagram. It's not Dino Tripodis Facebook.
Did you ever have your own personal Facebook?
I did, and I hated it, and I got out.
Yeah.
It got too.
You got a cheers from Brad.
It got too invasive. It got too invasive and started to take up way too much of what I considered to be valuable time of a day. Because even in its early stages, you know, if you didn't respond quickly, or people got pissed.
Yeah.
And
we got a message on the feed here from Chris, right? I can relate. If I don't text my wife back in 3 minutes, she thinks I'm dead.
Yeah.
I think there's other issues going on there, maybe.
Maybe possibly.
Sorry, Chris. No, I was just kidding.
No,
that's what.
That's kind of the
damn.
That's
yeah,
kind of where
kidding.
we're at. We have become accustomed to immediacy as far as response because we have the technology. There's no reason not to respond immediately, so why aren't you?
And then it's considered rude.
Yes.
Right.
Well, then we have these while we're going down that rabbit hole.
Let's go.
Now you have this whole thing where with you read the message.
Yes.
Not only was it delivered, but it's like you can turn it on and off that you read the message and what time you read the message.
Yeah.
So now you have this other aspect of it where you read it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There is a feature where you can that does not say that.
Oh, I don't have it. And it's not out of disrespect. It's just like, look,
well, I don't want you to know when I read it, so
But then, like the built-in messengers, like Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messenger,
oh my God.
Scene.
You can
like
turn that
off.
off.
Oh God, yeah, you can't
turn it off.
You can?
I
shit,
think
I didn't
so.
know that.
I don't know.
You can turn it off. You can.
I know you can on your iPhones and everything else,
Yeah.
but I don't know about Facebook or Instagram Messenger. But I mean, it's one of those things where if someone doesn't respond, then they're not responding for a reason.
And I'm fine with having the
hopefully not
business on Facebook,
Yeah.
and Instagram on Facebook, because all that stuff is for the podcast.
Right.
You know, it's got nothing to do with me personally per se. Every once in a while, something fun will slip through Facebook or Instagram, but nothing personal. It's too much. It's too much, and I don't know if you guys are like this, but I have friends who emote far too much on Facebook.
Yeah.
Far too much.
Guilty.
And it's I think so.
Do you do that?
I do that, and it's kind of...
Why?
So, it's interesting. So, if I may, it's an interesting way to kind of go about a marketing standpoint, right? Like, because Steve has, I don't know if you knew this, but like Steve has his kind of like personal brand mantra, focus, right? Well, mine was and is win the day. And that kind of came from my college football days, and that was our motto. So like my Instagram handle was @Jake_win the day. And that was when I was still big.
Win the day?
Win the day.
Not win.
No.
Win the day. Win.
WIN.
Win the day.
Win the day. Just like, what can you do for the day just to win the day? Like, and it's kind of...
positive.
Yeah, and that was back, like, I'll get back into lifting, but our viewers know that I've kind of taken a hiatus between lifting and doing this. I used to be a big power lifter and kind of stopped, and anyways, but...
You're a big, bulky guy.
Yeah.
I can see,
strong as shit.
I can see you
strong
look,
as shit.
you look like you're a strong man.
Thank you.
Both of you.
He's
look
strong.
Like, what?
It's all
he looks good.
Glory muscles.
So you just look like a badass. He is a badass. You know what you're saying?
I play one on a podcast.
But it's for me, it's kind of like an insight to the people that follow me and that I'm not around all the time. So if I can kind of bring them into my life a little bit, it's much like I can imagine you with your essays and your writing.
Right.
Just a lot less constructive. And so it's just kind of a willy-nilly, like I had a post that I talked about on last week's podcast about how, I went from weightlifting and I was doing my videography and photography and stuff like that, and it shifted. So when you go through a mind shift of, waking up at 4 a.m. and lifting and working out constantly and trying to do your own thing, working a job, and then you go to doing this and changing your mindset of, well, maybe I won't go to the gym today, or maybe I won't go to the gym in a couple days, and it kind of, anyways, for me, it's the people that I'm friends with and the people that I've met through the gym.
Yeah. And
I just want them to know, like, where my mindset is, and I
Why?
think, well, just because I care about them.
Yeah, all right. And
Yeah, go. Let it roll.
Yeah, I mean, you care about them, but do you also care about what they think of you? Is that why you're putting it out there as well?
And my initial answer, I feel better.
You feel better?
I feel better because I'm venting. It's much like if we're sitting here talking on the podcast and drink too much, and we ramble on, and that's how this started. I don't know about for whiskey business, but that's how this really started. I met Steve.
Right. I
started smoking cigars. We started doing Whiskey Wednesday together, and then we really got a lot of feedback on, well, why don't you guys do a podcast about it? And what it really evolved in, this is a podcast based on our relationship, our friendship.
And that's obvious.
Yeah.
And
sure,
all the stuff that I've watched. Yeah, that's very clear.
So if I can vent on here, but also do it on like my personal, I just don't see anything really wrong with it. But here's the thing is, it's interesting because I've done it less since we've started the podcast.
Interesting. Because you're getting more involved in...
Yeah. I don't have time. Like I said, I shut off my phone now. I never used to do that.
But I look at it from what we're talking about, being actively present. I will encompass what you're talking about, what we're talking about with the fact that you're posting on personal pages. For me, for what it's worth, I don't care whatever you're doing. If you want to be on Instagram, if you want to be at that moment, you're on Instagram and all that stuff. Again, be actively present in the actions, right? So if you want to put a post out there on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, if you want to do a podcast, do that. Put that. Be actively present on that. Don't just do that while you're thinking about other things. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, like texting gets a bad rap. Facebook gets a bad rap. Social media gets a bad rap. It's because it's one of the multiple things you're doing at that moment. So I would encourage anyone to train themselves that if you're going to do all that stuff, give that an allotted time. I'm not saying schedule it. If you have to schedule it so you can be more effective during your day, that's fine. I'm saying when you're on Facebook, be on Facebook. When you're talking to someone, talk to someone.
Yeah.
When you're smoking a cigar and you want to really get the notes from it, if you're drinking whiskey, you want to really get the notes from it, you can have a conversation, all that stuff, but do that 100%. That's the actively present part for me. It's like I don't care what the fuck you're doing. Just do it completely. Be present in that moment, in that task, whatever you're doing, and have a purpose for doing that so that you get the most out of whatever you're doing.
I get it.
Because you'll get more satisfaction. The people that you're interacting with, whether you're doing it on social media or you're doing it in person, on the phone, whatever it might be, you're doing it 100% for that task at hand. And I'm not saying multitasking is not valuable and needed, but I'm saying
it's got its place.
But don't just constantly give 50% here, 40% there, 60% there.
Yeah.
Fucking do it 100%. Be actively present in anything that you're doing, including posting something on Facebook. And know why you're doing it. Don't just do it to do it. Do it for a reason.
Yeah.
Because then there's something that you're getting from it, and hopefully people that you're interacting with, whether it be in person or through a post like you were talking about, which was a great post, that it comes across.
Did you see my message though in that post though? Let me ask that.
What you wrote?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. But again, it's but you're also the person, right? So there's a lot of people out there that will keep posting that type of a message
every day for
and then it's just kind of like you're doing it for likes. You're doing it for validation.
And arouse.
You're doing it for validation. People. You're doing stuff. And so that's where you have to be there.
Bigger studio audience, man. This is
the
biggest studio audience we've had.
You have to be there for the moment, is what I'm saying. For the task at hand.
It's awesome.
Does that make sense?
No, I get it.
So when you put that post out there, if you're doing it just for the likes, you're doing it for the shares, you're doing it for the audience of hey, I'm just trying to get a nibble.
Yeah.
Fuck that. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
You do it because you really, and that's what I know you did on that one, because you haven't done it. You did it because you wanted to send a message across sincerely from you.
That's the word, sincerity.
So if there's someone out there that knows you or just is getting to know you, they will actually hopefully see a consistent content in you as a character.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And what your character is, and that's what people, including when you're doing it, that's the value from it.
Yeah.
It's not just this surface level bullshit that you're just doing it to do it, and you're like, you know what I mean? You're just doing it to get viewers or listeners.
Yeah,
or whatever
people
it is.
dive down that rabbit hole constantly, especially with like social media, like what you're saying, and I can imagine like what you're talking about, and I'm sure with like the industry that you're accustomed to, that's what you saw.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I'm horrible with social media. My guys, you know, John Whitney is here. He's our
Great
producer.
dude.
He's our producer for the YouTube channel.
Nice.
And Greg Hansberry is my producer for the audio portion of it. Without those two guys,
You'd be talking in your basement.
I'd be
garage.
talking to nobody.
I got that on video right now.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes!
I understand.
Yes!
But I'm
On
saying,
video,
I'm
man.
saying if they weren't responsible for pushing the social media aspect of it, whiskey business wouldn't have the presence that it has now. And that presence needs to grow, and I know that I'm hindering it by not being savvy enough with social media. And I rely on those two
Right.
completely. My job on the podcast, and maybe this is my out, shame on me, but my job on the podcast is to talk to my guests.
You're the star. It's your show.
Well, I don't like the word star. I just like, my job is to be able to talk to my guests and try to provide 45 minutes to an hour of some sort of interesting content. Once that's done, thank God for those two to get it out there, because my job is done. Do I need to take a more vested interest in that? Probably, from a marketing standpoint and from a getting it out there more standpoint. Yes, and we've increased our subscribers and our listens. We've done that, but I take no credit for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's on those two. For
You're
sure.
the content.
I'm the content, yeah.
But that's where it comes into how do you get the content out there.
Yes,
You know
and
what I
I know
mean?
that's a part of it. That's a huge part of it.
So Jake was alluding to the fact when you're writing your essays or whatever, it's like a publisher, right? You can write some good shit. Anyone can.
I can't, yeah.
But yeah, and there's a talent there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like you can write all that stuff, but if you keep it in a notebook,
If I don't get it out
and
there,
it just sits in there,
right. When I'm done,
like,
what am I going to do with this?
It doesn't take away the value or
No.
take away the content of what you're putting out there into the universe. But it's like if no one reads it,
Then what's the point?
there's still a point.
There's still
But
a
I mean,
point.
like, what is? I get what you're saying.
It still probably
What's the
makes
point
you
of
feel
doing
better.
it? Yeah.
No,
Otherwise, you're just writing a journal.
Yes, exactly.
You're writing a journal that
Right.
no one reads and that no one can benefit
I want to
from.
get this out there, but I'm also my own harshest critic
Yeah.
as well. There are literally, as far as writing is concerned, there are stacks in my office upstairs of shit that I don't think is good enough to be published. And
Do you let anyone read it?
yeah, I have
Yeah.
let some people read it, and but some of it I've read just myself and said no, it's not good enough. And my friend, one of my friends said, when you die, he goes, put it in your will that I get all your all your unpublished manuscripts, because I'm gonna go what's the Stieg Larsson, the dragon tattoo.
Yeah.
I'm going dragon tattoo.
Oh, yeah,
on you.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna publish all your shit and make a fortune.
Shit's more valuable when you're dead, man.
Exactly.
He's like, why don't you give that to me now?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
let me read it, and then I can determine
Uh-huh.
when you're gonna die. What do you mean by that? Like, no, don't worry about it.
But
Right?
just
It's
like
fine.
how that is, if he would do that, then it's a deeper understanding for people into your mind.
Right.
And that's what I think is the disconnect when and I say this kind of negligently, if that's a word, but that's the disconnect between an older generation and understanding the now generation where like everyone's posting and stuff on Instagram.
Everybody's
and Facebook.
putting everything out there.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's an inner look into, because that's the thing is people want to know what's going. If you're one of those people that are interesting, and you are, I like it.
So far, you're interesting.
Yeah, and so is Steve, and so is all of us in the room, pretty much.
I'm running out of interesting, so we need to
We'll wrap it up. Yeah, you're used to doing an hour podcast. We're at an hour and 40. I get it.
But what I'm saying is I'm sure there's someone out there. I'm sure there's someone out there that is either listening to this or one of your subscribers that wants to know more about you, just a little bit more. And that's That's the difference. And this is kind of, it's really off topic from being present, but based on the social media and everything, that's the difference. Is they want to look into how your mind works.
Let me tell you, there have been, and there's going to be a third one. There have been 2 podcasts which have been extremely uncomfortable for me because the tables were turned. They're called the Whiskey Depositions. My next door neighbor is an attorney, and also one of my attorneys. I have many attorneys. It's good to have one next door. but
So many questions.
So many questions.
Go on.
Yeah, it's always good to know a guy. And but he had the idea where he would ask me questions about my life, and he did it in 2 parts. He did my childhood, he did from high school through college, and then the third one is from college to present day. Those have been some of the most uncomfortable podcasts because it was about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to reveal things that I wasn't completely comfortable with revealing, but at the same time was very honest about.
Right.
So yeah, I get that.
It's a slippery slope, I know.
It is a slippery slope.
And before we go too far, Brad texted me, he's in the studio audience right here, if you could wave to the camera, Dino, and say hi to his wife, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
Also,
that's all.
Can I?
Oh, Teresa listens. Teresa used to listen. Yes.
Also, Dorothy Crane is.
Dorothy Crane, your mom.
Yeah, she's a saint. First of all,
Saint Dorothy.
everyone in here that knows me knows that Dorothy Crane is a saint.
She's a saint. You must be. Look.
So I appreciate that. Yeah, she tuned in. It was great.
Look.
Yeah.
She was concerned. Is he going to be bothered by the smoke?
Right. No, she's
No,
out.
Dorothy.
She's out of choir practice. I think it's Wednesday.
Is she
night.
really?
Yeah.
She
She
like church choir?
She sings in the church choir.
Of course.
What
she
did I just
does.
say?
What the hell happened to you?
I don't know. No. Certain things stuck. Some things didn't.
Some
right?
things didn't.
Yeah. It's all
Hi,
good.
Dorothy. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Ma.
I'm out. Yeah. I think my dad's out there somewhere.
Is your dad? What's your dad's name?
David Sanders.
You got to say the full name.
Yeah, it's I'm an old soul, Dino.
David Sanders.
Yeah.
David. Hello, David. Mr. David
Hello,
Sanders.
hello, sir.
We'll throw an extra Mr. Hello, sir. Show the proper respect.
Yeah.
I'll trim the shrubs later.
Exactly. Now you're getting it.
All right. So,
Remember I said that when the whiskey started, I started putting on.
all right, there's the hat.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go.
You gotta cock
That's
it.
the
though.
being actively,
You gotta cock it.
actively
though. That's
present
the
hat.
Frank. There you go.
There you go. Is that
Thank
better
you.
for you guys?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it cocked.
Whoa.
All right.
So
Run with
let's
it.
not completely rule out the whole topic here.
No, the topic's not rolled out. I think the topic
yeah.
has kind of gone around the bend
Right.
a little bit, but I think we're still into the topic.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is that as we're doing all this, my mom says saint question mark. Yeah, she doesn't.
I thought she was a choir practice.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I'm watching this as I just got home. I assume from choir practice. Yes, exactly. But no, I mean, with the whole thing about being present, everything that we're doing here tonight is more valuable to people because of that presence of being involved 100%.
I agree.
keep
When
going back to it.
you were talking about Connecticut
Yeah,
and the cigars
yeah,
and the cheesecloth,
right.
and I was interested. I was actively present and listening.
Yeah.
It wasn't like blah 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 blah.
But there's times because you have interest in that, right? I mean, like it's a translation from like the bourbon world where there's relation, you know, there's a lot of like relation from like one industry to another. Like wine's another one. Everyone compares like whiskey and stuff, bourbons to wines, and then they compare it to cigars. So it's like you're engaged at that point because it's like this is new information.
But my point being was, you know, I was actively listening and present. I was in this moment.
I like that.
Yeah. So, I listened to what you had to say, and I found it interesting because I know nothing about that world.
Right.
So this is education for me. So I was actively present.
Yeah.
In that particular moment. And when he's talking about everything he did on Facebook and why he does it, I was active because I was interested.
Right.
I was actively
Well, I think there's a lot of value to it. I mean, we talked about like Jake earlier. You know, he introduced the fact to you, Dino, that he sells grave sites.
Yeah.
But and even for me, like learning about that stuff, it's one of those things where like he's like, yeah, this is the new job. I'm like, all right, like that's. And we're talking about like all I'm thinking about is my experience with that, right? On the other side as a customer, right, with my father. So with him doing that, then all of a sudden he talks about the fact that he has to be there, you know, during the burial and during the wake. And he's got like all these like.
Oh, you do?
It's a true.
I sometimes have to be a pallbearer too.
So it's like think about
Which
this.
is sad.
Yeah, but I mean, and
Which
not
is
to,
sad,
not to
there's
cut
not
you
enough.
off.
No, I'm not cutting it off. This is actually what I'm at. This is what I'm leading into is that when you do that, you know, it's one of those things where the whole thing is, and Nate just wrote, "Be here now." It's you stay until the job's done, right? So you're there the entire time.
Yeah.
So when you're actively present, that's what I was trying to introduce with your job, Jake, is that from start to finish, it's not about just being there at the moment. It's literally from start to finish. If you can do that, if you can provide that for a person, whether they are your significant other, or they're a friend, they're part of your family, they're a customer, that's the true, sometimes test, but true impact that you have on someone because you're actively present or you're present from start to finish. Mm-hmm. It's not that you fade off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like from a sales standpoint, right? Doing business, like it's like, yeah, you're in it, but then all of a sudden, like by the end of it, like you just kind of are going through the motions, and then I can't get a hold of you anymore. Like that's something.
You made the sale, I'm done.
Yeah, but for him, it's like you make a sale, and it's like, well, if that person passes away, now it's like you still have to be that person. Your role has changed. You're part of the memory. You're part of the experience, and if you're not present for that, and picture, you know, Jake, right? So he's got another sale, you know, his phone's ringing because someone else wants to talk to him about another gravesite. Like this is extreme, but at the same time, he's about to be a pallbearer in a ceremony, and then also he's got to be there at the burial, and also he has to talk to them, and also like have to button up all the final details when the ceremony's over, the funeral day's over, and all the family's leaving, but he's also getting his phone blown up because it's like you got 3 other sales that are opening up. So then there's the business aspect where it's like commission, and it's like, well, I don't want to feel guilty about this, but it's like, well, you're doing that, but you have that's managing your time so that you are in that moment and you are 100% there.
Yeah.
Can I continue?
Go. Roll.
Sometimes you have to be a pallbearer?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
My first day.
Doesn't that sad that there's not enough that you a stranger for most part would have to be a pallbearer? I would, when I die, I hope that there's enough people stepping up to well, first of all, I said I was going to be cremated, so it doesn't matter. But
I'll carry that Jack Daniels bottle.
I'm saying, okay, I'm saying.
We'll exchange numbers.
How sad that there's not enough people to carry that coffin.
That's how it works, though.
Here's the way I look at it, though.
Is it?
And it depends. So I'll give one example.
It breaks my heart a little bit.
It does. It did it first for me too, but it really depends in its perspective on the person that had passed, right?
Right.
So I had this World War II veteran. He was in the Air Force. He was a fighter pilot. Passed away. I think he was 97.
So he had the gift of living a long, long life.
His only relative was a nephew that was still alive, that was in Massachusetts. Came out, the dude was cremated, right? And so they present him with the flag and everything, and the guy from the Air Force that's doing the presentation and everything is talking to me about how, whether it's almost like disrespectful, like there's not enough people out here, and I'm like, yeah, but you didn't know this man.
Right.
And you didn't know, and I don't know. I don't know what his wishes were. And then getting to know his nephew a little bit more, standing literally over the guy's grave, the nephew was explaining to me how very very extrovert, or is it introvert? The
out or in?
In.
Introvert.
Introvert. Like he was very,
introvert.
he was very more introvert, and he didn't have a lot of friends, and he was 95, 97 years old.
That's a long time.
So the nephew explained to me this is what he wanted.
Okay.
And to have his nephew take care of everything, and that's the difference for me. Is as soon as, and a lot of people do ask that question, like, is it very morbid? Is it very upsetting? And it's not, because if it's actually very rewarding for me, where if I can make the family happy to a point where they're happy about laying their relative or loved one to rest, I've done my job, and they can leave the cemetery on a good note. And on the business side, hopefully, that will bring them back, and they will want to be by their relative or want to be at that cemetery because of the experience that they had with me. And that's kind of my torn portion of the business.
But isn't that a classic example of being actively present?
That's why,
truly
absolutely
being present. I mean, you are, after whatever, all the things you just said, are textbook example of being present.
Yeah.
You were there because that's why it might be part of your job.
Yeah.
But what you just explained emotionally and sincerely, to me, is an example of being actively present.
I agree.
You got a certain amount of, not satisfaction, but reward. You wanted to be there.
Yeah.
You didn't look like, oh Jesus, how long have I got to stand here?
Right.
You know, how long do I got to carry this? You know, what do I got to be someplace at 3:15, and I got to carry this coffin.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You were in the moment.
Yeah.
You were there. You were there. You were involved. You knew the history. You knew the story of what this person's life was. This long life, this World War II veteran.
Yeah.
You know what he did for our country, how he served, and so forth. Whether you consciously or unconsciously thought about that, it all kind of flowed into that moment. So you were actively present.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will not be able to do that, but you have a personality there that with Jake, you know, that this is it's not just about being rewarding.
No,
it's legitimately like you have a honestly genuine person that it's like, all right, this is my job, this is the circumstances, and you wake up, you go to work, and it's funny because Jake, we were talking about it last night, where he looks at me, he's like, do you ever feel like you're working? Like, you know, if you do what you like, you'll never work a day in your life, right? Right. But if it fits you, being there, there's some days, it doesn't matter what you do, if you like it, whatever, if you take you know, for him, like that circumstance, like he could have woken up that morning and been like, man, it's early, I'm you know, I was up too late doing a podcast, and the you know, that funeral was on a Thursday. Imagine that, right? And we're doing this, and we're doing the podcast, and the next morning, it's another thing on his calendar.
I got 2 tomorrow.
But again, that's where, like, to your point, Dino, it's like, in Jake's credit, you know, being actively present. It doesn't matter what you're doing, but and again, that's not the absolute extreme, but it's fucking getting close.
Sure.
Where you are taking on the emotion and the burden of a family and people involved in something that is so traumatic that you can still go from start to finish of that day, and at the end of it, you still may go home and be like, man, it was a rough day, but goddamn, it was worth it. Like, you know what I mean? That's the whole part of it, where he's not just, because I can picture someone else in that role where they are doing the typical thing, and Jake, you used to bring it up more, and I'm going to bring it up now, but it's like, you have this millennial, that 24-year-old that's trying to do this job because it's like, hey, it was a classified ad, you know, they were posting for this position, and I can sell, you know, grave spots, blah, 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 and then you get in this situation, and literally they just have their phone out, you know, like kind of like doing this, you know, the whole time at the funeral, you know what I mean, or whatever, and it's like, you know, but they're not even like looking at next commission. They're literally like on Instagram. But you have someone there that is being present, being there, and being a part of that experience the great part about it, and what I really want to like try to get across, is that not only are you there for the other people, but that's where, again, full 360, you're pulling out of these experiences and the knowledge base that you're going to grow from, because you learned all that. Everything you just said is exactly what being present is about.
I like that a lot.
Is because everyone benefits from doing what you're doing at that moment, so you give 100% for yourself and others, that everyone benefits.
Let me give you one word that and when I say this word, I'm encouraged by what I've heard here tonight, because I think it's a word that is severely lacking.
Dramatic.
Yeah, I know. I put my lighter
He was
out.
loading up. Did you not see that?
I know, and I was relighting my cigar. I wanted to put it out because I saw it building up.
It's severely. Good callback.
Can we do that again? Run back the tape. Run back. Roll back. Roll back. Here, put that cigarette out. Let's light up
But
another.
let me just tell you something that I've heard tonight from both of you that I think and I hope is part of the future, because I think it's lacking in society today, and it's part of being actively present. Empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy. What you showed and what you continue to show in those moments, just in that description you made, that was empathy. Empathy is part of being actively present. You have to have empathy.
100%.
You have to understand. You have to be able to absorb and understand someone's feelings. Sometimes empathy is if you are an empathetic person, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in that you can understand how someone is feeling. And if you're too empathetic, you take the burden on yourself sometimes, and it weighs you down, and it affects you that way. But empathy is what's lacking in our society today, in so many ways. I mean, let me just use an example of shootings, mass shootings.
Right.
You know, when Columbine struck, we were all just horrified by what happened in Columbine. And then as the shootings continued after Columbine and so forth and so on, and then when we hear about a shooting where 4 people were killed, we don't react the same way. It's almost like the body count has to be this high for us to have any empathy for what happened, when still the horrificness of it all is still the same.
Yeah.
So I guess when I hear you guys talking about things that we're talking about tonight, I hear empathy.
Yeah.
And God, I hope that quality starts to seed itself and grow again in the generations to follow, because I think we're sorely lacking empathy in our current generation right now. We've gotten a cold and ignorant as to what's going on around us, and maybe ignorance is the wrong word. Just it goes back to the lack of empathy. We don't care.
There's no identity in the situations that you get the alerts for, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get the CNN alerts, you get your local alerts, you get all this stuff. You know what I mean?
You become numb.
Yeah, well, if you don't have identity, and then you're like, another shooting.
Well, it's even the Amber Alerts.
Another car accident, another whatever it is. You know
think
what I
of
mean?
the Amber Alerts.
So even on a small level, even with you talking about what you felt, there was empathy there.
Yeah.
And even the things that you said about being actively present, there's empathy, and I just think that is something that we need to get back.
Yeah, I agree.
Into society today and moving forward. Otherwise, we're fucked.
Yeah, I completely agree. And building off of that, I love where you took it, Dino, where it went towards the empathy, and that's what I totally agree, because it really dives down to being present or being actively present is just simply giving a shit.
Yeah.
And when
sincerely giving a shit.
Sincerely. Yeah.
Sincerely giving a shit.
Yeah. And actually,
Another t-shirt right there.
Yeah. And when you're sincerely caring about the person you're dealing with, or being present and being actively present within that setting, it's so resonating to the people that you're around. It's so resonating to yourself. And I like what Steve added too, is that we don't know. I think a lot of people with the decrease of like the empathy and not being present, you never really know like when you're going to learn something else. Like build on yourself to an extent, right? Care about the other person, care about the setting, being present. But if you're not being present, you might miss something that may be a message to you directly that will resonate with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And if you're looking at your phone, if you're fucking watching something on TV, you're going to miss it. And it's a lesson that would transition your life into something great. And I totally believe that, because, and Steve knows this about me, is I'm very detailed. I watch people even if I'm talking, and that's the biggest thing about like sitting down and smoking cigars. Like you mentioned the cigarettes. If you sit down and smoke a cigar, it demands that respect. It demands that time. The whiskey demands that time. It demands that respect. And when you do that, there may be that point in time, like Dino, like you say, you write and you're drink, you pour a glass of whiskey or whatever, you have a cigarette, you may not finish the whole thing, but you're going to light it, and it creates this ambiance.
This process,
Yeah, me, I know, like, I'll go home tonight and probably write like a page on like my day. I think better because I'm one of those people that are always constantly thinking about shit, and this stuff clears all that. And it allows me to dive into what am I really, really feeling. I don't really care about what everyone else thinks. It's just me. But along with that, being present, being actively present, why don't you just care about the people that you're around? Because you may miss something, and it may be something great.
Yeah.
But that was my closing remarks. We normally do like closing remarks, but if you may start after me, and then kind of normally Steve finishes up, because if he finishes up, then that way
it'll probably lead into another 20 minutes.
Probably.
I feel like I made my closing remarks just a
moment
ago.
Dude, you killed it.
I don't know if I could top that.
You read my mind.
I don't know if I could top it, to be quite honest with you. Just that as far as being actively present, yeah. I mean, I'm not perfect at it. Nobody's perfect at it. We all fail at it. We all fail at being actively present. Would we agree to that? It goes back to what I said earlier. As far as men, we're all assholes at some point. We're all dicks at some point.
As shown on this podcast.
as shown on this podcast. Sometimes on purpose.
Sometimes you need to be.
Sometimes on purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes not proud of it, but sometimes it's been purposeful. It has. You've been an asshole on purpose.
Yeah.
And a dick on purpose, and maybe you regret it afterwards, and sometimes accidentally, sometimes caught up in the emotion of it all. But any chance you get to be actively present, I think it benefits the person who you're with at the moment, and I think it also benefits you on some level as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's not easy.
Right.
It's not always easy to be actively present. It's a conscious choice.
Well, I'll say this: there's a consequence, right, to being actively present, right? So there's the side of it. If you're completely passive, you're not present in a conversation or in a moment, right? So there's the classic thing now where you are texting, right, and someone's talking to you and you're doing that, and they ask you an honest question, and you're just like, yeah, sure, no, that sounds good, right? So there's consequence there, right? So that you might have just given them a green light on something that's a terrible idea. I'm thinking about leaving my girl, and you're like, yeah, no, I get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm texting, I'm checking Instagram, like, oh, you're thinking about leaving your girl,
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, no, if you're not happy, go ahead, and you're like, and then like you find out like 5 days later, like, you broke up with her? Like, what the fuck were you thinking?
I asked you.
You told me to leave her.
I asked you. You said.
The other side of it is if you are actively present in those moments, right, and you are hearing what the other person says, and you're in it, you don't feel comfortable saying your honest opinion. But if you're in it, if you're in that moment, and you're like, do you want to know? Like, if you, it's like,
do you ask that question though?
Yeah. Sometimes.
Do you want to know the truth?
Person,
do you want to know what I'm really thinking?
You're asking me for my opinion. Do you really want to know what I think? Here it is.
You've got to ask that question.
Because I'm going to tell you.
Especially in a situation like that.
And now all of a sudden, you're jeopardizing possibly this relationship.
No, I don't think you are.
No, to them, you might be. Now, long term, give it a couple of miles down the road, it'll be fine. But it's like, they're asking you that question because they're expecting something, and you're like, you're asking me, right?
No.
And they're like, why? Why do you say it like that?
Because I want to tell you the truth.
I'm going to tell you, you should leave her, or you shouldn't, because you're fucking up. Like, people don't want to hear the truth sometimes. So if you're actively present in that,
you can't handle the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack Nicholson. There's some truth to that. Some people want to be reassured.
Yeah.
And they want you to tell, like, no. They want to hear what they want to hear, and sometimes it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
The truth hurts.
Truth can hurt, yeah.
It can hurt.
And also, the truth can set you free. There's all these sayings.
We'll talk to them about what we talked about, like, not too long ago, about how we had a topic of misconception.
Oh God.
And about how.
Oh God.
Yeah.
We're gonna go down another rabbit hole.
I know.
But, see, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But we had a conversation on how, when I was dealing with my shit with my old job and like transitioning.
See how my closing remarks go? Just feeds into the conversation.
Into that, but into that mindset of like transition.
I always introduce something new in my closing remarks.
No, he does.
Hey, by the way, here. Slide this right down the.
Misconception. Go.
Well, normally it fucking starts where Steve's like, yeah, we've done like a great topic tonight, but what we really missed was this.
I've been listening the whole time.
He's been actively present.
Yeah, but he's got this fucking like hidden agenda.
I just figured
every time.
A hidden agenda or a gift.
It's bullshit.
You're welcome back anytime.
You're welcome.
But no, we were talking about the fact that like when I was transitioning my like mindset from like always going to the gym to like going to this, trying to find a new job and that, and I was like really down.
Yeah.
Steve was like my friend that was like, hey, this, like, you don't seem right. Like, is everything okay? And I'm like kind of pushing him off. Like, no, everything's fine. I'm fine. Like, leave me alone. Like, we're good.
Well, then it turned into, why does everyone keep asking me that?
Yeah.
You just answered it.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know where that tied into what you guys were talking about.
No.
Here's my thing. All right, so my closing remarks, right? So if you are present, in everything that you do.
Which is hard.
It's very hard. Because there's a lot of things going on in life, and sometimes they're bigger than other moments. But
and sometimes we are guarded, and cannot be actively present.
But I will say is that if you work on it, if that's the active part. I've said that, and that's part of my closing remarks. Is that if you actively work on being present in everything that you do, that's where you put 100%. Like, these are cliche statements, right?
Yeah.
You put 100% in, you get 100% out of it. You only get out of a situation or out of your efforts what you put into it. So my point is that if you are actively present, if you're around people that you care about, if you're doing something, if you're on a beach somewhere on vacation and all you're thinking about is other things in life, other than actually realizing the moment you're in, you're gonna lose out on something. I'm not saying that you, again, multitasking or making sure that all your dishes are spinning in the air type.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, gotta keep everything spinning, everything up in the air so nothing falls and crashes. But if you can get to the point where you have everything in check and you actually, when someone's talking to you, or if you're actually trying to enjoy something, that you do that you give it 100%. You put everything else on pause. I'm not saying give up on everything, you know what I mean?
Right.
But put it on pause. You'll get to that when you allot some time for it. Everyone wins, and you get so much more out of your day if you do it day after day after day, that's the active part for me. And that's what I've been working on, that when I'm like at the shop and I'm talking to a customer, it's super easy to be like, yeah, absolutely. I have that passive listening, passive conversation where it's like they get what they got out of it. I didn't get shit out of it. We're doing a podcast and all I'm thinking about is like tomorrow I gotta work, or it's like when I was going through the move, I'm thinking about that stuff, and it's like everything else. Everything will build up if you do not give everything that you're doing the credit it deserves, and the people in your life and the moments that you have with those people in your life, the credit it deserves for you. Because the biggest part of it is that you get genuine satisfaction out of what you're dealing with, and they do too, because they get all of you. And when you talk about communication is always the biggest shortcoming in business relationships, personal relationships, and even yourself.
Yeah.
It's because you're selling yourself short. You're keeping guarded. You're always trying to do so many things at once that you never actually appreciate one of those.
Right.
In my opinion, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's where I look at, if you're being actively present, then that is where you will actually pull from that moment, that experience, and that's when you truly appreciate it. And you won't, it won't feel natural at first.
Yeah.
Because it's not natural. And the other people around you, you're that person, you're like, man, like, it really felt like he was listening, and he gave me some honest opinion.
And that's
I agree with it, or I don't, or fuck, I didn't think about that.
Like
You know what I mean?
Listening.
What the fuck? Because it's like, to your point, that is rare, and that's the empathy, right?
If somebody actually feels like you're listening, that's kind of like, wow, they feel that.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you want to set yourself apart in this day and age, it's empathy.
And
right
what's
there.
empathy? And then also my whole thing is that we had a conversation recently, and Brad was there, and Jake was there. We're talking about communication and asking questions. Mm-hmm. It's not a game. Mm-hmm. If you're asking questions, now you're actually getting into it. You're actually learning something from it. So when you listen, when you're actually giving 100%, when you're actually actively being present, now you're learning something. Now you're getting something from it. So everyone's growing, and everything's about growth, in my opinion. And being present in that moment, being present in the conversation, whatever you're doing, that's where you're growing, and that's where you actually will get some actual push. And that's where it's like, now you have some new life.
Right.
In every moment, as opposed to just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Because if you're not actively present, you're going through the motions.
Well, I gotta say, are we getting close to wrapping up?
Yeah.
Well, again, my closing remarks will then lead into
spark something else.
But, yeah.
It's funny how that works, right?
But I gotta say, I'm encouraged by both of you, because there's a gap between both of your ages.
True enough.
24, 38.
Yeah.
I'll be 60.
You're 59.
59. I'm gonna be 60.
Just say you're 59. You're 59. You're 59.
I want to be 60. I want to be 60. Trust me.
Play your cards right. You'll be 60
I'll
soon.
be 60.
Right?
I want to be
down.
60.
Don't rush anything.
I want to be 60.
Be present in the moment.
There's a reason I want to be 60, because I've gone through, like, between 55 and 59, I'm sick and tired of hearing people dropping dead at 52 because of a stroke, at 53, and I want to get out of the only category. You understand what I'm talking about?
I do.
You understand? Because of, he had a stroke at 52. How old? He was only 52. He was only 53.
He was almost 60.
Yeah, but
no,
no,
Jesus
but at
Christ,
60,
man.
at 60, if I drop dead at 60, they'll go, how old was he? He was 60.
That's still young.
No, but it's out of the 50s. It's out of the death
This one's
decade.
out of the 50s.
I don't care what hat you're wearing.
It's out of the death decade.
He just wants out.
You're detracting from my point.
He wants out.
Probably.
Is that I'm encouraged by the things you both have said tonight in respects to actively listening and empathy. You both have showed empathy is part of what we need to do to move forward.
I agree.
So I am encouraged by that at 24.
Yeah.
Because your generation is one of the generations that has to move us forward. You're stuck in that middle.
God knows.
I don't know what the
I don't even have like.
I don't know what.
So being born between 80 and 83, it's not like a generation.
No,
like I'm not a millennial. I'm not a Gen Y.
You're stuck
it's
in the
like,
middle.
What the fuck?
I'm a
Like,
baby
shit
boomer.
happened.
I got.
Oh yeah.
I'm done.
If you make it to 60, apparently.
I'm gonna make it to 60 and then some. But for sure.
No, yeah.
Because I don't feel whatever. I don't feel 59. Let me just say that.
God,
You're as old as
the first time you said you're 59.
No, I'm throwing you a bone.
No, thank you. Very much.
Well,
that's for you, by the way.
Well, Steve and I thank you greatly, Dino, for being on. It's been amazing.
I can't wait. I can't wait to have you guys on Whiskey Business. Though I got to be honest with you, I have to find a whole new avenue to go, a whole new rabbit hole to go down.
You don't know what to do
when we talk. But I'm sure that once we get into my world, in my element, that I'll find a couple different things because. And here's why. Here's why. When you guys come on Whiskey Business, it'll be fine because I have been actively listening and mentally making notes about both of your lives. So we're going to go down some rabbit holes.
Get after it.
Let's
go.
We did not go down here.
I can't wait.
Then I said, I'm going to save that one. I'm going to save that one too.
Dear Diary.
I made my notes.
This is in a new notebook.
For those of you who love this podcast, these gentlemen will be joining me on Whiskey Business. And then I will have control of the wheel, so to speak.
Where can they find you on Instagram and Facebook and such? Give Whiskey Business some love.
Whiskey Business on Facebook, Whiskey Biz Show on Twitter, Whiskey Business Podcast on Instagram. Is that right, John Whitney?
Yes.
And Facebook, right?
And Facebook.
Yeah.
Whiskey Business on Facebook. At Dino Trip, if you want to tweet something to me personally on Twitter. You can do that, and
Whiskey Business on YouTube.
Oh yeah, well yeah, of course the thing that you do.
Thanks,
forget
Dino.
that.
Thanks a fucking hell.
Great having you out with that amazing
John Whitney,
camera.
Whiskey Business
with Dino Tripodis.
Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis on YouTube. If you want to see the raw, unedited Whiskey Business podcast on video, which John Whitney does an amazing job of recording and editing and making look like a real show.
Have a rapport. We have a rapport.
We have a rapport. John Whitney and I make films together, so
beautiful.
That's great.
We do that too, so we do a lot of fun things. Gentlemen, thank you. This has been awesome.
Yes.
From start to finish.
It really has.
It really has. And I'm wearing my hat now.
Yeah.
Before it's all said and done.
Yep.
Oh,
we gotta get Steve a hat.
Nah, I'm good.
No. The hat would take away from the badass.
I'd get my membership revoked.
To what?
I don't know.
Exactly.
All right, sponsor.
No, we want to thank you, Tri-State Bourbon Aficionados. It's a bourbon group that Dustin and I am a part of. Steve.
I am too.
Yeah, and they donated some glasses for us, so thank you guys and gals for donating those. Tony, thank you very, very much. Thank you, Tinderbox at Easton, for providing the Perdomo Reserva.
We didn't even get to the second cigar, did we?
I haven't yet. I will.
I did. But yeah, thank you, Tinderbox, for the Perdomo 10th anniversary, the champagne. Thank you, Altadis, that guy.
Altadis USA for the Butera and continued support.
Is this a Toro? Is that the size?
It's it's a 652.
652.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you,
Means nothing
Altadis.
to me.
It's 6 inches by 52 ring gauge.
Ah.
Yeah, they
still
call
means
it
nothing
Dorada 62.
Yeah.
6 inches is what she told you. Go on.
Thank you, Brian and Steve, for making an amazing cigar, the BS Gold and Silver. We hope that Dino...
I will enjoy these.
Yeah, we hope that Dino and the Whiskey Business Podcast enjoys those.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those.
Yeah, they're amazing. And thank you, Dino, for bringing the 1920 Old Forester Prohibition style.
You're welcome. That stays here.
Really?
Oh, fuck you.
It was a beast. Everyone went back to the 1897 because it was like easy drinking.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, all right, no, that's amazing.
Don't worry, I'll get to the 1920.
No, it stays here. No, I bring a bottle.
Thank you very much.
It stays. You don't take it with you.
No, that's amazing.
You bring something as a gift, it stays as a gift.
Thank
you
you
guys
very
keep
much.
it and enjoy it in good health.
Thank you very much. And Steve and I can't wait to be on Whiskey Business.
We gotta find a Monday that
Yeah.
complements your work schedules.
That'd be good.
But I
We'll
look forward
promote
to
it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's been a good thing. So I hope everybody watching on Facebook Live, if you've watched all of it, you need to get out more.
Whoa. Alright,
We're cut. Done.
Alright, cheers.
Crack.
Dino,
Cheers.
I said you're always welcome back. Go fuck yourself.